Oh, so it's only 4,000 less than the Summit? I figured as what's the limited, like 47 or something? Wow. And then there's four models, right? So there's one below the limited too. Laredo, yeah. Probably like 39 or something. Wow, okay. If I was gonna get the Overland, I guess just get the Summit. No. So this slate's absurd.
Yeah. At least it's only 6 games.
What?
I said at least it's only 6 games.
Yeah, but it's just nuts.
Yeah, there's so much. And there's no like really fun games either.
No, Charlotte's still facing the Lakers. By the way, all that injury news came out and the line didn't change at all.
Because nobody on the Hornets matters.
What?
Because nobody on the Hornets matters.
I guess so. You know what other line didn't change? The Thunder's so bad that Ingles, O'Neal all ruled out. Clarkson not playing, and they're still 16.5-point favorites.
That's pretty impressive. I actually thought that one would move a little bit.
Yeah, it didn't move a bit. Are we hot? I've been drinking this shit trying to hydrate. It's the worst tasting stuff of my life. Coconut water? You ever drink it?
It's worse than your piss Gatorade?
Well, I didn't swallow that. And that wasn't my piss.
It's worse, I think.
Yeah. Don't do drugs, kids. Nah, I'm not hungover, Dwayne. Yeah. I hung over my leg. No, I'm just trying to get healthy. Karen asks, how's the kid? Tell me how to pronounce your name again, dude. I'm so bad at that. I'm getting by, man. I'm getting by. One day at a time, right? What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by No House Advantage. Glad to have all of you with us. First things first, hammer that thumbs up. Let's at least pop it above 200 to kick this show off. We got about 500 watching right now. I am Dave Loughran at Laffy_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. Hit me with a follow along with my man Adam Scherer at ShipMyMoney DFS. And we got a 6-game slate, a wild 6-game slate to talk about today. We're going to go through all of them one by one. What's going on, brother?
How's it going? Yeah, a pretty crazy slate for 6 games. Yesterday seemed kind of quiet. Today, not really the case. A lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of it not really fun to talk about, but stuff we'll have to try and figure out as we go along.
Yeah, well, I say we jump right into it. Happy to have you guys with us. Show's not here without you guys watching, so we appreciate you. Thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. That's the biggest thing over anything, is hitting that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. If you're a viewer, you're just stopping by, that's cool. Hit the subscribe, and if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. But as of now, hit it. I don't think you'll regret it. You'll probably appreciate me telling you to hit that subscribe later down the road. Time to jump into this one. You've got Atlanta and Toronto. Oh, no. You know what? I almost forgot. I almost always forget. Almost forget, I should say. Your thoughts on the slate. It's so insane right now. I think Trey's going to play, but you had Van Vliet already out. Kyle Lowry was ruled out. Last night or the night before, Kawhi Leonard was ruled out. You have all of the centers questionable for the Lakers. PJ Washington out, Terry Rozier doubtful. And then you got a handful of players out for Utah against the terrible OKC team. The list just goes on. It's madness. Yeah,
plenty of value tonight, whether you're looking for someone towards the bottom of the pricing tier or just, guys that are underpriced in general. The one thing that's kind of weird is that there's nobody really to pay up for on this slate. You have Trae Young toward the top, you have Damien Lillard, you have Paul George, but there's no Giannis, there's no Jokic, there's no Embiid. There's none of those guys to pay up for. So you'll kind of naturally end up with a little bit more balanced lineups, but there is a lot of value in a variety of spots. So shouldn't have any difficulty making lineups that you feel good about and that score a lot of points.
Josh says, I think the Nets might cover the 6. First of all, I just gave you this one because I'm a nice guy. No reason I should have taken this bet again, especially with Towns out. Second of all, I told you I'd pay you in crypto. I didn't tell you what kind of crypto, so I'm going to pay you in a straight shit coin, okay? Something that
they're doing the best right now.
What's that?
They're doing the best right now.
Yeah, so they are, but I'll find something that by the time the transaction goes through, it's down to 0. Just to make his life a living hell. No, I'll pay you. It's not fair, but bet's a bet. So
why'd you take that bet again?
What?
Why'd you take that bet again?
Well, here's the thing. I've won every bet against Josh. I'm talking mustache bets, right? Chip bets and everything. So I thought it would be funny that even without Towns, if in some crazy way the Timberwolves were to win outright or cover, because I've been on such a heater against Josh, that it would be well worth losing $100 of crypto just for a pure entertainment factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just to kind of torment Josh. I get it.
Exactly. Because if that happened, he would never ever live it down.
Right.
He'd never make a bet with me again. So I said $100 compared to making Josh's life hell for the rest of the time we do shows together. It's very simple, but it doesn't look like I'll get it today unless we make a big late push. I don't know. You ready to dive into these games then?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Atlanta. I think Trae Young is going to play. There was word earlier that the Hawks GM, I don't know why he's making these calls, but said that he expects Young to play with that calf injury. The last game he played was huge. I mean, he had 42 points. Guess how many times he drove to the rack in his last game? Take a guess.
26.
31.
That's a lot.
Now, I'll give you something even better. On that night, the 9th of April, he didn't have the most drives on the slate. It was Zion with 32. So it's crazy, right? But I expect him to play today. He's 9,100, getting some ownership along with Capella, and Bogdanovic on DraftKings is 6,800. So let's jump into this one. The Hawks are 2-point dogs still, even without Lowry and Van Vliet, 224.5 total. What do you like here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a team that you can definitely look to because they are pretty shorthanded. The big piece missing, obviously, is John Collins from a usage standpoint. In the games that he's played without him this year, he's played 4 games without him. And overall, just looking at his minutes played, Trae Young has almost a 39% usage rate without John Collins. Even if you go back to last season, it comes down a bit, but you're still looking at like a 35% usage rate for Young. His per minute production so far in the games without Collins hasn't really benefited. But at the very least, the increase in usage rate gives you a higher ceiling. And, he's going to produce at a similar rate as he has all season long, but he's also pretty inexpensive now. I mean, 9,100 on DraftKings, 8,900 on Fanduel. Those are some of the cheaper price points that you find on Trae Young. So I think he looks very good. I think Capella looks really good because his production doesn't really change. He's at 1.35 DraftKings points per minute in games with Collins and without Collins this year, but it solidifies the playing time for Capella. Overall this season, he's averaged 30 minutes per game. In the games without Collins, he's averaged a little over 34 minutes per game, played about 35 last game, 37 the game before that. The only thing that's plagued Capella this year has been playing time, and now it's more solidified with Collins out. So he looks really good. You mentioned the salary on Bogdanovic on DraftKings coming off of a game where he played 40 minutes. I'm expecting, another 36 plus from him. I think he looks fine. Doesn't grade out quite as well as Capella or Young, in my opinion, but gives you guard forward eligibility and is probably going to play a ton of minutes. So I think those are the three main pieces, but you also could get to some Herter, some Lou Williams, some Solomon Hill. I mean, there's a lot of minutes to go around with Collins out, with Gallinari doubtful, with Reddish and Hunter out, and with Tony Snell out.
So I'm looking at someone, I want to take a little bit of time on Bogdanovic just because I the ownership is pretty reasonable, but one crazy thing about this slate, 6 games, got some good teams. There isn't a single player on DK above $9,500 that's going to be active today. Not one. On FanDuel, the highest price guy the highest price player is, Devin Booker, I think, at 9,500. There's just no expensive, no real top tier 11K, 10-9 players. So when it comes to some mid-range options, I think it might actually be a little bit easier to squeeze them in instead of having to take a stars and scrubs approach. Bogdanovic, since he started getting those big minutes, I think it was 8 games ago, it was the 30th of March, 1.08 DraftKings points per minute. So he has been pretty good. Do you think the price point is palatable today?
Yeah, I do. The minutes, if nothing else. And like you said,
he has been. What did he play, 41 last game?
Yeah, 41 last game. I think 35, 36 the game before that. And like you said, he's been playing better. He really struggled at the beginning of the year. Then he had the injury, but he's back to playing how I think most people expected him to play once he joined Atlanta. This is someone that with the Kings played pretty well. He was always a pretty good fantasy producer. And he was someone that when he played without, like De'Aaron Fox or somebody like that, he would always step up. This year for a while, he kind of was just disappointing no matter what the case was, but he has taken a step forward now. He's playing huge minutes. He's playing really well. And to what you said about the pricing, I think that is an important point because normally on a slate with this much value, you would look at someone like Bogdanovic and you would say, yeah, well, he looks pretty good, but I'm going to just pay for Nikola Jokic and a cheap guy instead. But you don't have those guys on this slate. So there's only so many spots where you can spend your money. It makes someone like Bogdanovic, who's a pretty good mid-range play, but that on a lot of slates wouldn't necessarily stand out. It makes them look a little bit better just because there's a lack of alternatives.
Right. That's the way I'm seeing it as well. Just no clear alternatives at the top. As far as the rest of Atlanta goes, and ownership bears this out as well, you've got a couple guys. You got Trae, Capella, and Bogdanovic, and then it pretty much just falls off the cliff. I can't imagine there's anyone else, assuming Trae Young plays, of course, that you're going to be high on at all, right?
Kind of. I think the ownership is coming in a little bit too low on some of these other guys, given how many players are out.
Is Herter one of them?
Yeah, Herter, Lou Williams. Solomon Hill's kind of an emergency last resort, but Herter and Lou Williams in particular, and I only mentioned Hill because he played 37 minutes last game, but these guys are most likely going to play big minutes. Do I think Bogdanovic has a better game than Kevin Herter more often than not? Yeah, I think that he does, but you're still probably getting 35, 36 minutes for Kevin Herter. You're probably getting 26 minutes for Lou Williams or somewhere around there at 5,200. It's not like it would be the first time we've seen Lou Williams take over a game when he's on the floor. So I think, they don't stand out as priorities, but given that Williams is getting 2% ownership on DraftKings, I think that's kind of an interesting spot.
How many minutes would you give him? 5,200, assuming Young's active and plays no limited minutes at all. How many minutes are you giving Lou?
So I think it's volatile, but my guess is that he gets in the mid-20s here because you are missing all of these other guys. He's been sort of backing up Trae Young and then playing a few minutes alongside him normally, but now you're taking Gallinari out of the rotation. You're taking Tony Snell out of the rotation. It's pretty easy to find minutes for Lou Williams unless you think that Brandon Goodwin is still going to play 20 minutes or Skylar Mays is going to play 15 minutes or something like that, which we haven't really been seeing.
Any priorities for Atlanta before we talk Toronto?
Capella and Young.
Yeah, I would think so too. I really like Bogdanovic a decent amount too. His ownership projection just came down from 16 to 13. And, a 45 fantasy point game, 43 fantasy point game at 6,800. You're going to be satisfied with that. And I think it's doable today in what's at least projected to be a close one. So on the opposite side, you have Van Vliet and Lowry both out. On the season, Siakam, 1.22 DraftKings point per minute guy without both of them. Malachi Flynn's been 0.95, so I guess we have to determine what type of run he's expected to get today. Let's start with Siakam and Boucher, and we can work our way down through to the backcourt.
Yeah, I mean, Siakam's been pretty disappointing in the games without.
Yeah, he has. It's not elite production at all.
No. And I mean, in the 3 games he's played without Van Vliet and Lowry, he only has like a 9% assist percentage. His usage rate is like 26%. So like pretty much where you would expect it to be anyway. He's been pretty disappointing without them. But the thing is, like, when you're talking about trying to project guys in situations that they don't play a ton of minutes or a ton of games in, like Lowry and Van Vliet being out, you have to like kind of use logic and use common sense. It would be pretty weird for Pascal Siakam to be worse without those guys. He's going to get more opportunities. You know what type of player he is. He's a capable playmaker. He can score, he can rebound. So at the very least, you should be getting the same production from Siakam, and a higher ceiling because there's less mouths to feed. At his salary, I think even if you expect his season average production, he's a perfectly fine option. Obviously you would like to have seen him produce at a higher rate, and he'd look a little bit better. But at the very least, I think he's a decent option here. Same goes for Chris Boucher. I am slightly concerned about his playing time now that they have Khem Birch. Not that I think Birch is going to play more minutes than Boucher, but I think that it's pretty likely you see something like a 28-20 split or 29-19 or something like that. I think Birch being there makes it less likely that you get one of those 36-minute games from Boucher that we did a couple of games ago. But, I think Boucher has a really high ceiling, just a pretty low floor for where his salary's at now.
Jordan's got me yawning on camera and chewing on my necklace over here. Like, it takes me off screen. I'm relaxing for a second, right? Been a long day. This fucking guy's got me on screen doing all the stuff I'm not expecting people to watch. But thanks, pal. I appreciate that. Good job paying attention. All right. Anybody other than them once we get to the backcourt and the wings, when you're talking about Gary Trent Jr. coming off a huge game 2 games ago, and then you have another 23 actual point game. He's not someone that's going to provide you with a lot of peripherals. He's at 6K. Then you've got Flynn, who I think we have to touch on at least. His ownership is somewhat high right now, 20% on DraftKings. What are we doing with the backcourt with the guards here?
Yeah, so there's 2 guys here that I think need to be talked about just kind of in the terms of like how wide their range of outcomes is. Flynn's one of them because he has played very well over these limited games where Lowry and Van Vliet have been out. But you also have to keep in mind that he's averaging like 2.5 steals per game and 1.5 blocks per game. That's not necessarily something you want to rely on. He's averaged over a fantasy point per game in those games, but for the season, he's only about a 0.77 DraftKings point per minute guy. So I think that it's realistic to expect him to settle in somewhere in between there, and to play 30 to 33 minutes or so here. So I still think there is some value on Flynn. I do think he's expensive enough now that there is at least a path to him failing. And then the other guy, and this is specifically DraftKings because I want no part of it on FanDuel, Deandre Bembry is $3,900 with point guard and small forward eligibility. He'll most likely start today, but he's only played about 22 minutes in each of Toronto's last 2 games. Obviously, Lowry was in for one of them, but in the other one, it was the same situation as today. He hasn't closed the first or the second half in either of those 2 games. So I think it's, I was a little bit higher on him when I wrote the deep dive today until I dug into the rotations a little bit more. It's very risky. And I think that there's a good chance you only get like 23, 24 minutes from him. But if he's playing well, he certainly has a path to, 28, 30 minutes, and he's 3,900 on DraftKings. So the projected ownership on him right now is very low. And again, I don't think he's safe whatsoever, but I also think that he's going to outproduce $3,900 a lot more often than the field does right now.
I was wondering where you'd land on that because his minutes have kind of been all over the place, right? I mean, there was one game he played 30 minutes despite having 5 fouls, then 32 minutes the next day. And then I'm pretty certain he was chalky one day and he played 20 some minutes. So he went 30, 32, 21, 22. Was there anything, you talked about digging into it a little bit more. Was there anything really that stood out to you for Bembry saying like, okay, this is why he got the 30 plus and this is why he only played low 20s?
More guys in the rotation, I think, has been the biggest thing. Like Watanabe played 16 minutes last game. Rodney Hood's been back. They had Freddie Gillespie in the rotation for like 9 minutes last game. So it's kind of just stuff like that where, Watanabe's been playing, Hood's going to be in the rotation, but I think a lot of it too probably just has to do with Bembry wasn't really doing anything when he was out there, and that's kind of the thing. If he's playing well, he has a path to play more minutes. He, certainly could take minutes away from, a handful of guys here. But if he's doing what DeAndre Bembry normally does and kind of is just out there not doing anything, then there's a good chance he's only playing like 22 minutes again.
All right, the same question then, because we only have 6 games today and so much madness. Top options, priorities from Toronto?
Siakam's, I think, the top guy. Like I said, obviously you'd like to have seen more production out of him, but the opportunities should still be there. He is reasonably priced, and back to what you had said before, it's not like you're comparing Siakam to any, real superstars from a DFS sense on this list.
That's a good point. I wrote the deep dive last Thursday for you. You get a couple of days off of that each week. It's totally free at Awesemo.com, by the way. What a better time to put in a plug, right? Totally free at Awesemo.com. It's the best free comprehensive daily plays DFS basketball article you're going to find. I promise you that. And if you disagree, well, it's free. So, don't say anything, but I don't think you will. NBA player projections are free today too. So are MLB top stack tool. You better check that out. PGA golfer projections and NHL player projections. We have so much stuff, so much premium content that, we're happy to give away some free stuff as well. Go to awesemo.com/join. Check out all of the tools we have to offer. Everything from ownership, player projections, top stack tool, lineup builder, boomer bust tool, everything, optimal plays tool. We have everything you need to become a better player, and the fantasy cruncher add-on. So if you want to better your game, you really want to dive deep into this, even if you only have a few bucks a week to spend, we got you covered there. Or you want to make a legitimate investment, do an all access monthly, all sports, golf, PGA, MMA, everything, NASCAR. Adam's a perfect example of someone that doesn't know some of the sports that he's best at because of the tools, right? MMA crushes. He had a monster run playing NHL because you're able to use tools. And sure, sometimes it can help if you know the game. He knows basketball really well, but I venture to say that some other sports you're actually better at. You've had more success recently at than basketball.
Yeah, it's really helpful because it coincides. There's a lot of sports that a lot of people don't know anything about. And so the edge is bigger if you have a way to exploit it. Like basketball, at this point, you can only be so much better than the average NBA DFS player because there's really, really good tools readily available. But in some of these other sports, MMA, League of Legends, NHL, stuff that people don't necessarily have as much knowledge about or pay as much attention to, just, using tools that you can trust can give you a pretty big leg up.
Yep. And Jordan Klein put it up on the screen. Anything you want, we got you covered over there. Go to awesemo.com/join. Check it out. If you have questions, my DMs are open on Twitter. At least follow me first, though. Give me some respect. I'm happy to answer your questions, though, even if you don't. I'm a sucker. So what I was saying, as I digress here, is that I said the same thing in the deep dive last week. You look at Siakam. It was without Van Vliet, without Lowry. You look at Siakam's numbers without them. They're good. They're not elite. So if you're paying $9K for him, you should at least be looking to see who else is in that $9K range that you can get to. And I think sometimes you get this flavor of the week complex, Adam, where people will see that, oh my God, Lowry and Van Vliet are out. That means Siakam has to be the top play. But if he's priced at high 8K or 9,000, there's not a ton of meat left on the bone to make him an elite play. He's a good play, but given his production, it doesn't make him that strong of a play to where you need to jam him into every lineup is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And in situations like that too, it's where you can kind of just look at ownership and pay a little bit more attention there as well.
That's a good point. Yeah. But he's always talking in those situations.
Right. For what it's worth, right now on DraftKings, or at least an hour, the last time the Boom Bust tool was updated on DraftKings, we actually have Siakam being one of the most under-owned players, 16.6% ownership with almost a 24% chance of being in the optimal lineup. I think that does speak to, even if the average production is a little bit questionable based on what we've seen, there's really no question that he has an easier path to putting up a massive game without Lowry and Van Vliet, because if he's playing really well, there's nobody on this team he needs to share the ball with, basically.
That's a good point. Yep. Ownership is the deciding factor in a lot of that stuff. Let's move on to game 2, Clippers and Indiana Pacers. The Clippers 3-point favorites, 230 total. Josh and I talked about this on the strategy show Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. every single day. It'd be crazy to miss out on that and all of the wildness that we get into while still covering some great DFS basketball content. That The Pacers are playing at the 7th fastest. You probably already knew this, but we were kind of surprised when we discovered it. 7th fastest pace in the season, but 3rd fastest pace over the last month. So this is, in fact, a pace-up spot for the Clippers today without Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, the Pacers have played fast recently, like you said. They've been pretty mediocre defensively as well. 18th in defensive rating over the last month, and now you get a lot of really good plays coming from the Clippers. Paul George, I think, is pretty comparable to what Donovan Mitchell was last night. Obviously he's not facing the Wizards, but still in a pretty good spot here. This season, he's played 5 games without Kawhi. He's averaged 1.26 DraftKings points per minute. But going back to last year to get a bigger sample size, he's played 16 games without him, 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. And even this year in the games without him, he's still got a usage rate up around 35%, assist percentage up around 29%. So the opportunities have still been there. It's just a matter of time for him to put it all together. He's not expensive. There's not pay up options on this slate. George right now projected to be the highest owned guy on DraftKings, and I absolutely think he should be.
So, wait, you said Paul George is the highest projected owned player on DraftKings?
As of
okay, it changed. He was earlier in the day, then it flipped back to now he is. And have you noticed how flat ownership is outside of the Paul George and basically the Charlotte players?
Yeah, and that's what I think it should be. Like writing the deep dive today, when I go through each position and I write the guys that I have some interest in and I try and prioritize them, it became I felt like I was quote unquote prioritizing a lot of guys, but it wasn't because I loved a lot of them. It was just because they were all kind of like, yeah, he's good, but he's just as good. And this guy's also right there. George was one of the few guys that really just stood out above everything.
Okay. I think so. It's pretty obvious. There's no doubt about it. And ownership would say the same thing. Once you get past that, though, once you get past Paul George, and with our ownership tool, you can filter by team. It makes it a lot easier. If you're looking to see what the team, like the aggregate ownership on these teams look like, it can be helpful. Marcus Morris is up there. Ivica Zubac is getting a little bit of love. What about Reggie Jackson, though? Is this somebody that you might be considering today with Pat Beverly still out, Kawhi Leonard? Is there anything there for Jackson, or is he a little bit too costly for you?
I think in tournaments he's okay, especially if his ownership stays down where it is. He's the kind of guy where he doesn't project great relative to other options on the slate, but he doesn't really project poorly either. I think his median projection is around 25, 26 points at 5,400 on DraftKings. That's perfectly fine. To me, he falls behind obviously George.
Get that on camera.
Behind Marcus Morris, he falls behind Zubac in terms of who I'm prioritizing from the Clippers, but we all know Reggie Jackson can give you a good game. I think the biggest thing working against him is that you have Rajon Rondo in the rotation now. So it makes it more likely, I think, that you do only get 28, 29 minutes from Jackson with 19 or 20 going to Rondo. It's something that you see all the time where if someone doesn't really have a backup that is going to play X amount of minutes, they're obviously able to play more minutes. I think it makes it a little bit more difficult for Jackson to get extended or, to get up north of 30 minutes unless they play him alongside Rondo. But still, if you're getting 28 to 30 minutes of Reggie Jackson, who without Kawhi on the floor this year, has about a 19% usage rate, 24% assist percentage. He's not a bad option here as long as the ownership stays down.
And I'll ask you about one more. I know the answer is probably no, but I do this because I've already seen questions about him. So it helps to clear it up. And we have plenty of time here on a short slate, especially given the last game. We're not going to have a lot to talk about. So it's basically a 5-game slate, Adam, unless maybe you have some gems, some diamonds in the rough. But okay, you're shaking your head. No, that's what I thought. What about Rajon Rondo, who last game played 20 minutes? Not a great one, but prior to that, see, this is what people are latching onto, that 19-minute, two fantasy point per minute game where he had 15, 3, and 9. If I can't trust him to get more than 20 minutes, I know Rondo can be a quality per minute guy, but he's less than a per minute producer this season. I just don't know I see it, even if he gets 22 minutes, but maybe you have a different take.
I mean, I get it. My final interest in Rondo really will come down to his ownership and to how necessary he really is in lineups, because I think he probably gives you a good point per dollar score. I think he plays 19 to 20 minutes here. He probably scores 0.9 to 1 fantasy points per minute. It's just that without the pay up options on this slate, am I better off getting 20 points from Rajon Rondo in a roster spot so that I can get one more $9,000 guy, or going to one of these, 5K or 6K guys and, just basically playing 2 6K guys instead of a 9K in Rondo. That's kind of what it comes down to. And then obviously the ownership matters too, because if Rondo's right now, he's at about 7.5%, 8% on DraftKings. If that ownership were to go up to, 15, 20%, that tells you a lot of people are taking the same lineup build that you would have if you go with Rondo. So not only do you need that stars and scrubs type pairing to be the highest scoring, you're also going to be just on a very similar construction to a lot of similar teams. So if he's low owned and I really, like what he's able to get me, I don't have a problem with him. If I look at a lineup that I really like and I have Rondo in there as the last piece, it's fine. But I don't think on this particular slate that he's likely to be super useful in terms of making your lineup a whole lot better.
Right. Yeah. It's just, do you think he is the per minute guy that he's been on this season? Because he is a sub one fantasy point per minute guy. I suppose you don't need a 36 fantasy point game from him, but
yeah, I assume he's like a 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute guy.
Do you have any other love for the guys we haven't touched on? Marcus Morris, Zubats, who else here for the Clippers?
Yeah, really like Morris, really like Zubats. Zubats played 35 minutes last game. He's someone that the minutes have kind of been down at times this year, but a lot of that's been due to foul trouble or blowouts. I think that Kawhi being out helps his playing time as well, because you've seen Marcus Morris get minutes as the backup behind Zubats. Now you're getting more of, Morris playing minutes at the 4. So more minutes available at the 5 for Zubats with Patterson backing him up. And he's really cheap. Zubats has averaged over a fantasy point per minute without Kawhi this year. Marcus Morris is at 0.95 DraftKings points per minute coming off of a 36-minute game last time out. So I think both of those guys look like two of the better values on the slate. Beyond them, Nick Batum, Luke Kennard, both guys where they have a path to success. I'm not super confident in it. I think Kennard's really similar to what I was saying about Deandre Bembry, where if he's playing well, you could get 30 plus minutes from Kennard. More often than not, you're going to get like 24 to 26, and he's not going to be that useful. One other thing that matters a lot for Kennard is whether or not his playing time staggered with George and how much. Last game we saw a good amount of staggering, but not all of it. He's averaged almost 0.9 DraftKings points per minute without George or Kawhi on the floor, but 0.6 fantasy points per minute when George is out there. So it makes a really big difference exactly how Ty Lue runs the rotation there.
All right. Anything else for the Clippers?
Nope.
So with the Pacers, Sabonis is down to 8,800. That's got to be somewhat enticing. He's 9K on Fanduel. Both of those spots pretty appealing. Again, competitive up-tempo game. I would expect a decent game from him. Karis LeVert, 7,500. Brogdon, though, 6,700 on DraftKings. He's coming off that 62 banger or whatever it was, huge one. I could see there being some interesting spots here, and no one's really getting a ton of ownership for the Pacers right now. Is that the way you think it should be, or are you willing to get over the field on a couple of these guys? Of course, Sabonis is 22% on FanDuel, but there's nothing else. And then Sabonis and Brogdon are in that 15% range on DraftKings.
Yeah, I really like both of them both of them in general, but the ownership on DraftKings looks pretty appealing, especially Sabonis. I don't think that, maybe people aren't giving enough credit to the fact that Miles Turner is out and you're getting center minutes from Domantas Sabonis, or maybe they're scared off by his playing time. In the 2 games since he came back from injury, he played 33 minutes and 30 minutes, but in the game he played 30 minutes, he was in foul trouble. So I don't think you can really read into that. He had, I believe, 5 fouls through 3 quarters. So I don't see any reason that you're not getting, the normal 35 to 36 minutes from Sabonis here if he can avoid foul trouble. He's averaged about 1.36 DraftKings points per minute without Turner on the floor going back to last year. He just, benefits. His rebounding numbers go up. Everything pretty much goes up. So I think Sabonis looks great at a reduced price tag. And I think Brogdon offers some value too. He played 39 minutes last game. So not that I expect him to do that again, but he's obviously not on any sort of restriction, after missing time with his injury. So I'm expecting him to get his normal 35 to 36 minutes. He's averaged 1.09 DraftKings points per minute or since LeVert joined the team. So I think Sabonis and Brogdon both are underpriced here.
Okay. Yeah, so do I. I like both of these price points. The Clippers don't make for the easiest matchup, but it's not as daunting, especially without Kawhi Leonard in there. So
yeah, and without Beverly too.
Without Bev too. Yeah, I actually mentioned that today, I think, to Josh, that I can't say I don't have more interest in somebody like Brogdon when Patrick Beverly's out, because I suppose it could have had an instance where if LeVert wasn't on this team, you saw more Chris Paul in him. And I even mentioned, I don't really talk much about individual matchups. Neither of us do. But I do think you're going to see a lot of guys like Reggie Jackson and Rondo, who isn't the same defender or close that he used to be, on Brogdon, where Paul George is spending time on Karis LeVert. So I think it could have an impact.
Yeah. And to what you were saying about, not really spending a whole lot of time talking about individual defense. One of the reasons that we don't bother doing that is the Pacers have like 115 point implied total right now. If Pat Beverly and Kawhi Leonard were in, most likely that would be a few points lower. So it's just one of those things where projections are taking into account the defenders that are out there to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Trey is a game time decision now. We'll see if we get news before game time, because game time decisions usually come before game time. Danilo Gallinari is ruled out. So there's your news on that. What else for the Pacers, if anything?
That's about it. Yeah, like there's nothing else that looks too appealing to me. Like if you're playing really large, like if you're playing large field tournaments, you can obviously like throw a dart at Jeremy Lamb or something, but there's no guarantee he plays more than 14 or 15 minutes. Yeah, it's pretty much just Brogdon and Sabonis to stand out.
All right, then let's move on to the dreaded Lakers and Charlotte game. I DM'd you later this afternoon saying that James Borrego's rotations drive me nuts. Just trying to figure out what's going on with some of his rotations, because he doesn't just have, and a few guys do this. Carlisle does this a lot. Pop does this a lot, but he doesn't just have a backup for most positions. It's like he'll bring in a backup to play the point guard position, but then he'll bring another backup point guard in to play along that backup point guard. He just does so many weird things with his rotations. And just look over his last few games, you're going to see that with guys like Wanamaker and Devontae Graham. But tonight you won't have Terry Rozier. At least I don't expect to see Terry Rozier, and PJ Washington's out as well. So before we get into that, let's spend just a little bit of time on the Lakers, because I don't think this will take quite as long to break down. Schroeder and Kuzma are probable. Drummond, Gasol, and now we got that late news that Markieff Morris is also questionable. So they're 1.5 point dogs, 206.5 total, still dogs against the Hornets. All three centers are questionable. What happens if all of them are out? Do you have to go to Harrell here, or tell me what this looks like? Because I think if Harrell starts, it directly impacts what the starting lineup could look like for the Charlotte Hornets too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how many options Charlotte has right now, but for the Lakers,
you don't think so? You don't think they could just go super small? You think they have to start Zeller?
I think they.
Or Biyombo?
I mean, I think so. Like, just for the sake of running their rotation, it seems like they need to play centers.
All right. Anyway, go ahead with the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, for the Lakers, obviously waiting to see, who exactly is out there. We know that they would rather not start Harrell. I'm kind of assuming that if Drummond is out, that Gasol is in, and vice versa. Like for Drummond, I am guessing it's a back-to-back. Like they said, it's his elbow, but I'm assuming it's because it's a back-to-back. So my guess is that if Gasol's in, Drummond's out, and vice versa. But we'll obviously have to wait and see. If Drummond starts, it makes Drummond still a good option. He was pretty disappointing yesterday, very disappointing yesterday. He hasn't been great in his time with the Lakers, but I still just think it's a matter of time, at least for as long as Davis and James are out, until you see Drummond start to take over games again, like he did with Cleveland. If he's in, it does take rebounds away from Kuzma. It takes some usage away from Schroeder. If he's out, though, you get those rebounds back for Kuzma. You get Schroeder as a more productive player. And then you also get Montrezl Harrell at $5,500. Obviously, he only played 2 or 3 minutes the last game that Drummond was out. That was the game against Toronto where him and OG Anunoby got ejected. So don't read too much into that. In the previous game that Drummond missed, he played about 26.5 minutes. If you get 26.5 minutes from Montrezl Harrell, at 5,500, he's very likely to be a good play. The last time that these two teams played was a really disappointing game if you rostered Harrell, because it was one of the games where Borrego just did not go to him. Charlotte went with PJ Washington at the 5. They basically just played 5 out, and the Lakers took Harrell off the floor. But I think that's less of a risk here because PJ Washington's not playing. We know that. And they're just shorthanded enough to where I think they're likely to just play a center, and Harrell will be perfectly fine.
So are there options for you on the Lakers right now?
Yeah. If Drummond's in, I really like Drummond. I have some interest in Schroeder at 6,500, and then a little bit less interest in Kuzma. If Drummond's out, I really like Harrell. I really like Schroeder, and I like Kuzma a little bit more than I did.
All right. With the Hornets, though, it's a bit of a mess. And we just had a question that I'm sure plenty of people are wondering from Jacob Kimball in chat. Says, how many Hornets is too many? Let's get that out of the way first before we kind of dissect this mess of a team.
Yeah, I'll probably not go more than 3 in tournaments, and I'll just play however many show up in my best lineup for cash.
They have a lot of players on this roster that could be played today, even if they don't play a lot of minutes.
Yeah, it's also site dependent. Like Cody Zeller on FanDuel is a lot more expensive than he is on DraftKings. Jalen McDaniels is a lot more expensive on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. Brad Wanamaker is a lot more expensive on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. So DraftKings, I think it's going to be easier to get to a bunch of guys from Charlotte.
Yeah, for sure. And that's another reason. That's also why ownership is going to be higher on these guys on DraftKings as well. So it's crazy. You look at the starting lineup. Rozier, Hayward, PJ Washington, LaMelo Ball. That's 4 of them right there. So the lone, there's not much left. Miles Bridges, Devontae Graham should get a lot of minutes today. And I guess we can talk, and Malik Monk's out as well. So we can get into this. Start wherever you want, from Graham to Bridges to Jaden McDaniels to Cody Zeller and Brad Wanamaker. Take your pick.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start in the backcourt with Graham. There's obviously, questions about how well he'll play against a good Lakers team, because it's definitely a situation where he should get more minutes. He should get more opportunities, but he's not really the best NBA player. He can only do so much when he's out there. But we have seen him produce 1.19 DraftKings points per minute so far this year when he's played without Hayward, Ball, or Rozier on the floor. He has about a 24% usage rate, 37% assist percentage. So the rates have been there. The production's been there. The minutes should be there. I think Graham looks like one of the better values today as far as the mid-range guys go. Brad Wanamaker behind him, he played 27 minutes last game. He's been a solid part of the Hornets rotation basically since he joined the team. I'm expecting you get at least upper 20s from Brad Wanamaker again tonight. And at 3,800 on DraftKings, he's a productive enough player that he's going to look pretty good. I think you can play him alongside Graham. You don't have to just choose one or the other. And then I'm expecting that you'll get you could get Wanamaker in the starting lineup. My guess is that you get one of the Martins instead, and that the starting lineup is Graham, Martin, Bridges, McDaniels, and Zeller or Biyombo. Whichever, if one of the Martins starts, whichever one starts, I think is a fine value option. There's certainly minutes available here. Cody's averaged about 0.73 fantasy points per minute this year. Caleb's at 0.82. So, all things equal, you would rather it be Caleb in the starting lineup, but they're both basically minimum salary. They both have the potential to play close to 30 minutes here if they start. So if one of them starts, they look like a good value. Moving beyond those guys, you get Jalen McDaniels and Miles Bridges. Bridges coming off a game where he played 36 minutes. McDaniels has averaged about 29 minutes per game since he joined the starting lineup. He probably plays a couple more minutes here as well. Both of those guys look like good values, particularly on DraftKings where McDaniels is 4,300. So you can get to any of those guys. And then the center position, I think a pretty big question of who will start. Like you said, they could just go with a completely small lineup, but I think it's more likely that they go with Wano, Zeller, or Biyombo. Biyombo, before PJ Washington was starting at center, Biyombo was getting the starts, but since then, Zeller has been ahead of him in the rotation. So my guess is that it's Zeller, but it could be Biyombo. Zeller, obviously the better fantasy producer, averaging well over a fantasy point per minute this year, could easily play, 27, 28 minutes here and be a pretty good value option.
And Chris Phillips, you nailed it. Just what we said yesterday. If you have questions and you're putting them out there in chat about certain players or certain teams that you missed, that nifty little game list right to the left of the screen, that'll help you. That'll do you a huge favor. Just rewind back. Just pull it back. Pull it back a little bit. Catch up on the game. And then if you want to fast forward back to work to then hit it live, we got you covered. By the way, all of our shows are available in podcast form as well. Check it out, awesemo.com podcast, or just go to any of our podcast platforms, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever you use. This one won't be on podcast because there's no shelf life, but all the other ones that we do throughout the day or that have a shelf life, you can check them out there. Leave a review and a rating as well. Appreciate it. All right, so the big question here is talking priority plays. You just have so many players ruled out today, and legitimately notable players, not just a bunch of bench players. I'll get to that Bembry news in a second. That it's going to just free up so much, but it's also going to shoot ownership through the roof. So much so that the Charlotte Hornets have four players right now in the top 5 ownership on DraftKings. So who are the priorities?
I think Graham and on DraftKings, I would say, God, everybody. DraftKings pricing is just so cheap compared to FanDuel here.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's Graham, Wanamaker, McDaniels, Bridges, Zeller if he starts, and then whichever Martin starts.
Okay, fair enough.
But they're all good plays on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's Graham and Bridges, I think, and then it's like a drop off to McDaniels, Wanamaker, Zeller, Martin.
All right. Deandre Bembry has been ruled out. Is it huge news? No, but it's significant enough with Lowry and Van Vliet out, especially given that Bembry had been getting a decent enough run in the starting lineup. How does that affect your decision-making for the Raptors tonight?
Makes me more confident in Malachi Flynn because Flynn's already been getting the run. He's looked like the preferred option to Bembry, even though he hadn't been starting over him. Now you take Bembry out. It's just one less body that potentially fills that role. I think it makes it more likely Flynn closes the game. You certainly could see Flynn start now as well. I haven't seen that news yet, but I think it makes the minutes more consistent for Flynn.
Okay, fair enough. So we got 3 down, 3 to go here. Making pretty good time. Got about 20 minutes to make that happen. Guys, hit that thumbs up, please, 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 please. Don't embarrass me. We got 276 and almost 2,300 people watching. Definitely happy to have 2,300 people here, whether you hit the like or not. I'll tell you that much. Subscribe to the channel as well. OKC in Utah. I mentioned you before the stream. I don't know if the mic was hot or not, but the Oklahoma City Thunder are so bad. They're so bad that the Utah Jazz had several players ruled out, several key players, not Mitchell. I get that, not Gobert, but several key players ruled out. And the line did not move an inch, right? It didn't even move a point. It sat at 16.5. So it just goes to show you how bad this team is. They'll be without Pogačevski today. They'll be without Isaiah Roby.
He's playing.
What's that?
Roby's in.
Oh, Roby's in?
Yeah, he went from out to playing.
Oh, okay. Well, I missed that. When did we get that news? What, during the show?
Start of the show.
Oh, okay. I missed it. Thank you. So Isaiah Roby is in then. I don't know how much of a difference that makes. I'm sure the line didn't shift all that much there either. There's just so much to feel awful about when it comes to this Oklahoma City Thunder team. Do you get to guys like Bazley or Tony Bradley? Is there any value in the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight? By the way, it's not a good matchup either.
Yeah, so I'll preface it by saying we're talking about a team with 103-point implied total going against one of the best teams in the NBA. That doesn't mean none of these guys can have good games, and there are some pretty cheap price points. It's just that it's pretty tough to feel great about these guys. 4K on DraftKings for Tony Bradley, I think, is probably the spot that I like the most on DraftKings out of the OKC guys, just because he's been splitting the center minutes with Moses Brown. I'm assuming he plays 20 to 22 minutes. He's a fantasy point per minute guy. I'm not super excited about it, but it's a cheap enough price tag. Bazley at 5,500, I think, is fine. He played 36 minutes last game. Roby coming back certainly could have a negative impact on him. We'll have to see. Does OKC play Bazley at the 3, like go with Bazley, Roby, Brown, or do they not do that and Roby cuts into Bazley's minutes? I don't really know which way they're going to go. We haven't seen this particular lineup yet, but regardless, you're not expecting great production out of Bazley against Utah. So more of a secondary option for me there. Beyond that, it's really hard to get to anything. Like with Gilgeous-Alexander and Horford out, you've seen Theo Maledon with about a 26% usage rate. He's produced pretty well. Lou Dort gets a bump in usage rate as well, but neither one's really priced down enough to where they look very good to me on this slate. Like there's a lot of guards that I like between $6,000 and $7,000 where I don't feel like I need to go to Dort or Maledon at 5,300 or 5,400.
I'm a Tulsa dog. Every day he has a new one. He says Laffy could sell automotive service plans to the Amish. Laffy could sell rosaries on the corner of the street during Ramadan. So they're good. They're really good. But the reason I'm good at that is because I actually believe in the product. I see so many people win using the tools that it's super easy to do. It's natural, right? I mean, I'm just good at it, but you get the point. I did sales before and I was selling this dog shit magazine. And I was so bad at it because I'm thinking, even if I make a sale, they put this person, Adam, they put their ad in this rag. No one's going to look at it. No one's ever going to look at it. They're never going to look at it once. And I don't have the heart to sell something that is so bad and take somebody's money, especially if you get an old lady on the line or something like that. But with the Awesemo, it's super easy. So
I mean, I sold life insurance, but I'm a psychopath and can just pretend to believe in whatever.
Yeah, sociopath is probably more along the lines.
Yeah, whatever.
Narcissist, yeah.
all of them.
Yeah, but life insurance at least has some utility, right?
Yeah, it was more. It does have utility. It was more that I didn't really know anything about it, so like I wasn't sure if it had utility, kind of thing.
Right. Like for me,
I made everyone else believe that I believed in it.
Yeah. For me, it was straight in the recycling bin for whoever actually received these papers, So I don't know. It's funny, but it is what it is. The Utah Jazz, you're not going to have Clarkson today. At least we don't expect to have him. You don't have Joe Ingles. You don't have Royce O'Neal. So we talked about it on the strategy show that there's a good chance you see some players rested. Josh and I thought it could be Rudy Gobert, but it's not the case. They're still going to have a decent amount of bodies. But do we go to Mitchell here? And is this one of those rare times where we should actually be worried about the blowout and losing that fourth quarter run, Adam?
I'm not so much concerned about the blowout as I'm mildly concerned that we just get a shorter rotation than normal. Because the reason I say that, like, I think there's a chance that you just get, Mitchell basically, even if the game's competitive, like playing 32 minutes instead of 36. The only reason I say that is because they are resting Ingles, resting O'Neal. I still think the most likely outcome is that you get normal run from these guys, and then if the game blows out, Snyder gets them out of there. But I do think their floor maybe is a little bit lower just because of the combination of blowout and Quinn Snyder potentially just shaving a couple minutes off their rotation. But I'm still projecting them like I normally would. Their average playing time this year factors in the blowouts anyway because Utah blows teams out so frequently. So I still think Mitchell looks good. I think Gobert looks good. Kind of surprised by how much ownership is going to Mitchell on DraftKings right now. Refreshing to see if we got an update, but so we got one 11 minutes ago. He's still getting a lot of ownership, and I think it's probably that you have to spend money somewhere, and he's one of the top raw point plays. He does still benefit too. Like, even though Conley's back, with Jordan Clarkson being out, he should play about half of his minutes without Conley or obviously Clarkson on the floor. That's the same situation that we loved him for yesterday. So I do think Mitchell still looks good. Just I'd put him obviously behind Paul George today, and a little bit just lower than he was yesterday. But I still think he looks like a good play.
Priorities from this game?
Gobert, Mitchell. I think Niang is a pretty interesting value. I'm not super confident in him, but he is 3,100 on DraftKings, 3,800 on Fanduel. He's about a 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute guy this year. If you do get 25, 26 minutes from him, he should be pretty useful.
Okay. Yeah. Elijah, 100% true. 100% true. But I'm not one to brag. All right. Let's talk about Boston and Portland. Boston Celtics and the Portland Trail Blazers. What are we doing with the Celtics today? And then I became someone that talks about other people playing sports. So yeah, the trajectory is strong. Boston 1.5 point dogs, 229 total. Do we like the Celtics? And is there anything that we should be paying attention to from an injury standpoint? As far as I know, there's not much going on here.
Yeah, nothing much injury wise. And that obviously makes it so like no one player stands out. But I do think that really the main four guys here, Tatum, Brown, Kemba, and then Robert Williams, all carry some tournament appeal just because it is a good matchup as far as Portland not being very good defensively. They are a slow team as well. But looking at the ownership projections right now, sub 10% on Robert Williams on DraftKings, Tatum around 14, Jaylen Brown between 15 and 20, Kemba getting about the same as Brown. They're all at a point where I don't think they're really under-owned, but it's not like they're getting a ton of ownership either. Brown on Fanduel, I think, is pretty appealing because he's a small forward and the position's not that good. Tatum, gives you a really high ceiling. He's more expensive than Siakam. He's more expensive than Sabonis. I definitely prefer Sabonis. I think Tatum and Siakam are pretty close, but no problem getting to any of those guys. Robert Williams is interesting, I think, just because it's really difficult to find players that are as volatile as he is at his price point. He's averaged 1.25 fantasy points per minute in his starts, about 25.5 minutes per game. There's foul risk. There's, Tristan Thompson closing over him risk. Either of those things can happen, but there's not that many 6K guys that average anywhere close to 1.25 fantasy points per minute. And it's even more difficult to get them at low ownership. So I do have some interest in Williams.
The Blazers have, no injuries, which means usually on a slate like this, when absolutely no one's injured, the only way you're going to get any ownership is if someone's dramatically underpriced, right? Or it's just such a good matchup and they're such a good player that it doesn't matter. That happens from time to time, but this is a weird slate. Damien Lollard is coming off of, I don't know, is that the worst game he's ever played as a starter?
I don't know what he did.
Okay, I'll tell you. He had 20 fantasy points in 37 minutes.
That's probably the worst game he's ever played.
He had 12 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists, and 5 turnovers in 37 minutes against the Heat. I can't think of a worse game. Can you?
No, he probably was distracted with his new NFT drop.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, get some virtual shoes for your virtual house. Big things happening. Actually, 4 games ago, he had 26 against the Clippers in 38 minutes, 11 points on 2 for 14 shooting, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. All of that is to say that when Damian Lillard is at his worst is when everyone bails, right? You know, everyone sells low on Dame. They want nothing to do with him, right? When really, if you buy low on Dame is when he rips off that stretch of like 5 straight 80 fantasy point games. He's very capable of doing it. I'm not saying it's going to happen tonight, but what I am saying is that Boston's defense has been very middling defense this season. Dame still is capable of, unless he's injured and we don't know about it, of throwing up 55 real points on any given night. And his price is $9,500. So Adam, I'm not saying you have to play him. I'm not even necessarily saying he's a great play. What I'm saying is 10% Dame at $9,500 on a day where there's no real high priced options in tournaments, that might be at least worth looking into.
I'll frame it in the way it makes the most sense to me. On DraftKings, he's half the ownership of Donovan Mitchell.
There you go. Yeah.
You know,
and Donovan Mitchell might not play the fourth quarter. A very, 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 very good chance he might not play the fourth quarter.
Right. It's not like, and I'm not saying don't play Donovan Mitchell, the game's going to blow out or something like that, but I'm saying like they project, we have Donovan Mitchell like projected 2 points higher than Damian Lillard. So, you know, Mitchell looks a little bit better, but it's not like it's a massive margin. Lillard's going to beat him a good amount of the time. There's, like Lillard can beat him just by playing a better game. We know that Damian Lillard is perfectly capable of outproducing Donovan Mitchell. He can beat him because he ends up playing 8 minutes more because Mitchell doesn't play the fourth quarter. Like there's so many different ways for Damian Lillard to get there at the same price point on a slate where salary isn't really going to matter all that much. You know, I do think kind of like we talked about yesterday with Jokic and Embiid, Mitchell's a good play. So I'm not saying like, you know, you don't know what you're doing if you play Mitchell over Lillard or something like that. I am saying that I think this is one potential spot where if you go from Mitchell to Lillard in order to have a more contrarian lineup, you're probably making a move that if you did, like you make moves like that consistently, you come out ahead. It's not like the only move on the slate like that. It's not one you have to make, but it is one that I think is probably profitable.
Right. I'm with you. By the way, if we didn't already have enough news, if we didn't already have enough players ruled out, Trae Young is out. I'm so glad his GM chimed in on his status earlier today saying he was probable.
I'm just glad you saw that because I thought I had seen it was probable, and then he kept being questionable on injury reports, and I was confused.
Yeah, no, he really did say it. I mean, he said he expects him to play, and he would know more than I do, right? So I just kind of took it as, all right, well, he's probable. Doesn't mean he's necessarily in. Is Goodwin just a lock now?
Yeah, I'm pulling up where to go. I'm trying to find the last game now because I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that part of the rotation since I thought Young was playing.
All right, and feel free to talk about Lou Williams too, because his minutes are just inevitably going to climb with Trae Young's 35 or so not in the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, Goodwin played 37 minutes last game. If he gets remotely close to that, then he's obviously going to be a great play. I mean, he's $3,500. Solomon Hill played 37 minutes. He's 4K. And then Williams played 28. Trying to look now to see how Williams is done without Young on the floor this year. I mean, obviously, it's not super important. You kind of know what you're getting from Lou Williams. But he's played 134 minutes without Williams in Atlanta, 0.94 DraftKings points per minute, 24.3% usage, 26.5% assist percentage. So the rates look pretty good. Goodwin this year, 0.81 DraftKings points per minute without Young on the floor. It's a bump for Herter. Capella is still going to do Capella things. Bogdanovic should have the ball in his hands more. I mean, there's, you know, like I said, Young has about a 39% usage rate without Collins on the floor this year. So there is a ton of shot volume to go around now.
All right. Chris Phillips says Trae out better for Flynn, matches up with Goodwin. Trae's a horrible defender.
Yeah.
Horrible defender. Like bottom of the league. Go ask your boy Josh what he thinks about Trae Young defense. He'll give you a diatribe on how bad Trae Young is when it comes to defense. But I want to say too, remember you and I were super bullish on Lou Williams the one day where he was getting no ownership. It was one of his first games, might have been his first game with the Hawks actually, and Trae Young was out. And there were a lot of other spots that people went to. Maybe Trae wasn't out, but like Herter and Bogdanovic were out and a bunch of players were out. And Lou ended up having a 40-plus fantasy point game. this is one of those nights where Luke could have a huge game. I think it helps Bogdanovic a lot too.
Yeah, I agree completely. So Bogdanovic has played 333 minutes without Young, 1.05 DraftKings points per minute. And keep in mind, a lot of that, or some of those minutes at least, came earlier in the year when he was just playing awful regardless. So, we know from his time in Sacramento, Bogdanovic can handle the ball. He can make plays. He can score. Kevin Huerter has been the backup point guard at times in the past as well and has always seen a bump without Young. So I think everything looks better now for Williams, for Goodwin, for Young, obviously not for Young, for Bogdanovic, for Huerter. The only person I think that isn't really affected is Clint Capella, but he was a great play anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, Borrego's trolling us so hard right now. Listen to this report. This is a mega troll for any DFS player. Coach Borrego said he'll start either Cody or Caleb Martin for injured Terry Rozier on Tuesday. Added that he'll start either Cody Zeller or Bismack Biyombo for injured PJ Walker.
Glad that Borrego read the deep dive today where I said that he would start either Caleb or Cody Martin and he would start either Bismack Biyombo or Cody Zeller.
Oh, you gotta love it. I mean, that is the most opaque comment that you could offer up when it comes to that.
I also love the tweet saying lineup note, like they're informing us of anything.
Right.
Like you could have just not reported on that one.
Right. So he's going to do exactly one of the two things at each position that he has to do.
Yeah. James Borrego will start 5 Hornets, and undisclosed number of Hornets will come off the bench behind them.
It's bizarre. And the worst part is that's a 7:30 game. Oh, no, okay, it's an 8 o'clock game. So fine. But what? I don't know. That is very funny to me because it just doesn't it feel like a troll job?
Yeah, it feels like he just
Adam, he knows who he's starting. It's 6:30.
Right, yeah, it felt like he just wanted to screw with the reporter. Like it's a reporter that's covered the team all year, and they were probably like, "Who's going to start in place of whatever?"
Yeah.
Just like one of the 4 people that you know is going to start.
Right. That guy wrote some bad shit about him, so now he's just like making sure his life's a living hell, giving him bad info. Are we still on Portland? We are, right? Outside of Lillard, I don't think we've hit on the rest of this team, so go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about McCollum before. He's just playing really well this year. He's actually produced about the same fantasy points per minute as Lillard in the games they've played together. So I think, if you're not quite paying up for Lillard, you're not quite getting up to that price range, you can certainly go to McCollum here. A pretty good chance he has a big game. Outside of that, nothing that really stands out. Nurkic's price point's okay if you're looking for like a direct pivot off of Zubats. But, I prefer Zubats if we're just talking about who looks better.
Anybody else? Anything else for Portland?
No.
All right. Let's close this one out. Before we do, I don't think I mentioned it yet. No House Advantage, for those of you that know about it, don't tune out. Listen to me. They're doing today another deposit bonus, right? But it's not just for new users. If you're an existing user at No House Advantage and you use the code Awesemo again when you deposit, AWESEMO, you get another $20 free added to your account. So you got it as a new user. Now, even if you're an existing user, even if you signed up yesterday, right, or the day before, or a month ago, or a year ago, I don't even know if they were around a year ago, but you get the point. You get another $20. Another $20 when you deposit. Use that promo code. It's peer-to-peer player prop betting. It's a very cool format, GPP style, and it's easier to win money than other sites. There's just might not have the same prize pools, but even if you build your bankroll up over there using the tools that we have at Awesemo, which are entirely free, by the way, the player prop tool for No House Advantage, the optimal lineups tool, all of that stuff is free. You can take some of that off and go chase those 6-figure paydays on DraftKings or Fanduel. However you want to do it, doesn't matter to me, but take advantage of the deposit bonuses using the promo code Awesemo and take advantage of the opportunity to actually have an easier time winning money playing DFS. This way it's through player props, but you're applying the same research and the same knowledge that you're using to piece your lineups together anyway. So download the app, No House Advantage, use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO. Whether you're new, whether you're existing user, you get that $20 for free when you deposit and sign up. All right. Miami and Phoenix, close this one out for me, Adam. The Miami Heat right now on the road, 3.5-point dogs, 217.5 total.
Yeah, I mean, Butler and Bam, I think, are the two starting and pretty much ending points for me. We know both of those guys are capable of putting up massive games. This should be a competitive game. It should be a good basketball game. It's just that, I don't really love the pricing on either guys. Phoenix is not a particularly fast team. They're a good defensive team. So, Butler and Bam both sort of just secondary contrarian options. And then on the other side, basically the same thing with Phoenix. I mean, Devin Booker doesn't really stand out as a great option. You certainly could use him in place of Donovan Mitchell and just, hope that he gets there and beats him for the ownership discount. Like he at least has that upside. Same goes for Chris Paul. But none of these guys just really stand out. It should be a much better, I think, NBA game than NBA DFS game.
I think so too. So there's just nothing here for you, huh?
No, not really. I do have a new favorite part of the James Borrego thing though. Like I can at least understand maybe he's waiting on the Lakers center situation for Biyombo and Zeller. Like maybe he has a preference there. He can't decide between two literal twins between the Martins. Like he's not waiting for a matchup. They're the exact same person.
Right. Exactly. None of it makes any sense. But you're okay. Could you give him some excuse? Can you give him some leeway when it comes to the center position? I suppose you could, but not really. I mean, Bismack Biyombo is not big, Adam, right. But he's also, but I get that, but he's also a center that plays bigger than he is, and he always has. Borrego started him against big centers a million times in the past, so I don't know.
Right. Like I personally don't really think it matters, but he might have a preference there. But there is no way he can have a preference between those two. Right.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense. It's funny though, and it's a solid troll job. Also got a extremely solid show coming up next. It is the Live Before Lock show. Chris Spags, Eric Lindquist taking you all the way up till 7:30. Lock, be there. Don't go anywhere. Same stream right here. And while you wait that extra 30 seconds, maybe a minute, hit that thumbs up. We're not even at 500 yet. We can't. That's just shameful. 500 likes before we get out of here. Turning this one over to Eric and Spags. Jordan, thanks for producing as always. And chat, thanks for keeping me entertained. It's been a good one. Hopefully we helped you out a little bit along the way. We'll be back tomorrow on the Deeper Dive presented by No House Advantage.
See you.
Later, boys.
What's up, guys?
Yo.
I want to go first. Oh, I had to change the settings. So I'm doing the four corners early. I don't know. How could you dance at a time like this?
Brian Goodwin.
Yeah, let's do it.
Brian Goodwin.
What is up, guys? You got one more hour left before lock on DraftKings and Fanduel and 90 minutes before lock on No House Advantage. So we are going the bonus half hour to talk about that site as well as any breaking news that's going to come in an NBA world that is always chock full of it. But I'm Chris Spags, joined by a man who I appreciate very much. I know you guys do too, whether he's on Live Before Lock, the Slate Starter with Rin Pack, or the Tip-Off Show with me and Kayla and Greg and whatever duos are rotating in there. But you know him, you love him. He's Eric Lindquist. How you doing, Eric?
Good. That was the nicest intro I've ever gotten from anyone. That might also be the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. So I appreciate you too, Spags. I know that there's a little bit of sarcasm involved in it too, but I'm okay with that. I think that's your love language, I believe.
It's true. A little bit of densely layered sarcasm, I suppose, could always be the way that I communicate my love. But no, I feel like the one thing I always follow, a verbal crutch of mine, is you know him, you love him. Like sometimes people don't know or love the person, but I just say it because it just fills the air and I feel like builds. Like it's like a little drum roll to introduce the person. I feel like you especially appreciate a good drum roll.
Oh, so you're lying? That's cool.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
Selling is what we call it in both the professional wrestling industry and in the tout industry. But we have a lot to talk about this show today, guys. So smash that like button now. Loughran and Adam did a great job, as always, on the deeper dive. So give them a like right now, as well as us, to help get to a respectable number here. I feel like with 2,500 people in the room, we should easily get to 750 likes. And then at that point, the halfway point of the show, if you get us to that mark, that 750 like number, give you guys the top 5 own to plays on DraftKings and Fanduel at a special time here on Live Before Lock when I'm hosting called Money Time. So hit that like button now, smash it if you can. And of course, make sure to play over at No House Advantage, because as Loughran just mentioned before we came on the air, big deal going on for you guys over at nohouseadvantage.com. If you download No House Advantage at the App Store. And the big thing to know about No House Advantage, you're taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA. Probably not so much the NFL right now, but they do have it for cash prizes. And it's exclusively a peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform that levels the playing field, makes it easier for you to win real cash compared to your traditional DFS sites. With over 500 player props offering, No House Advantage is the largest provider of player props in the industry. And for today only, No House Advantage is giving all users, so that is new and existing users, a $20 deposit match with the promo code Awesemo. So go over to No House Advantage, use that promo code Awesemo, whether you are signing up for the first time or whether you've been there before. Take advantage of it. And again, we'll do that half-hour show after DraftKings and FanDuel Lock, talking more about No House Advantage. Make sure to check the Apple lineups page too on Awesemo. Check the top tab under NBA. You can find it on there with lineups that are basically just made for you to paste in on a CSV. So if you don't have the time or the effort, you can do that for yourself. So go check that out. Eric, let's get to the slate though. And I'm going to ask you first, what is the most important news item to you on the slate? Because the Trae Young news coming in right before the show, going to be a big one. But in terms of the lineups you've generated so far, what's the big thing for you so far today?
Well, now we're waiting just for Drummond, which again, I have no idea. I have no clue. I mean, there's an argument to be made. I could see them resting him. I could see them playing him. He's obviously cheap compared to like what his rates would be, right around 1.5 fantasy point per minute producer on like through multiple situations. Obviously, this is a new situation, so we got to factor that in as well. But even 24 minutes of Drummond makes him look pretty darn good. So we're waiting on that. But otherwise, we got the Trae Young news. I never had him in the entire day, so I don't really have to change that much, which is great. It just kind of felt very strange. What a weird situation. Not that I had like a huge pull, but I think it was pretty simple to tone everybody down after the fact. But I wanted to make sure that my crunches on the front end had Goodwin, because I thought that he was going to be a big part of this slate.
Yeah, Goodwin, it does seem going to be a big part. Very generous projections from Awesemo today on Brandon Goodwin. And I think this is the one we can hit on up top. I thought the Charlotte news is going to be the big one. I thought Kawhi Leonard being out, making Paul George look like a top play on a slate that I think this is a weird slate, Eric. And I don't know if you've seen one recently. You play more, I know, on the Sundays, do some shows here. I usually take my Sundays off, so I might have missed one. I don't recall a slate recently where we haven't had a single player projected over 50 fantasy points.
Yeah, so this is really kind of a fun slate. These are the ones that I usually, what makes this unique especially is that generally on those slates where you don't have the 10K guys, you also have thin value. We have nobody to pay up for and lots of value. So it really kind of becomes a smorgasbord of like using the boom bust tool as that updates here. I think being able to factor in a couple of pivots. I really liked what the guys were talking about beforehand in terms of pivoting off of Donovan Mitchell, finding some spots to get different. I think that really becomes such a big part of this slate because we have such condensed ownership, even on those spend up options, because they're so glaring. It's like Paul George with no Kawhi. It's Donovan Mitchell with no Joe Ingles, no Royce O'Neal, a plethora of options going around now for Atlanta. Like, we're going to see some situations where you're going to get some great leverage potential on a guy like Bogdanovic. I think a guy, well, we'll see what that ownership gets to. That's really what it comes down to, is what happens in the next 45 minutes that we can factor in and be able to take advantage of our opposition and find some positive leverage.
Yeah, we're going to give you guys, again, the top 5 owned plays on DraftKings and FanDuel for free at the halfway point of the show, but you can always get them yourself at awesemo.com/join. The player projections, ownership projections, the boom bust tool that Eric mentions a lot, but not in a loving way, because it's very helpful for his process. And a lot of people, a lot of hosts on the channel we have, including our own Alex Baker, use that boom bust tool as gospel to figure out ways to get edges on the field. So that's part of the package at awesemo.com/join. So make sure you were going over there and checking all that out. But I guess I'm going to sort through the lineups that I have so far and get a read on where I am. But I have to say the Brandon Goodwin news, I think, is one that we should hit on up top, just because his value, I think, is going to be one that makes it very difficult to avoid. And there have been some situations recently. I think if people watched the Brooklyn game today and saw Naz Reid, I think if we had that game on the slate yesterday, he would have been a guy I thought would have had the best possible game, been the best value play on the slate. That game got moved because of the issues going on in Minnesota once again, but he ended up playing terribly today. And I feel like that's sort of a very micro version of things here, but I feel like in the same situation, I have to trust Brandon Goodwin, much like I would have a Naz Reid. 37 minutes projected from Awesemo, played a ton of minutes the last time that Trae Young was out. And the projections for him, again, 34 fantasy points, DK points for Brandon Goodwin from Awesemo. Is there any way you're getting away from him? Because he is one spot. I imagine the ownership's going to soar when we get our next ownership update. But what are you doing with Goodwin? Do you feel like he's just worth plugging in and just having in lineups? Or do you think he's a guy that you can find other value to replace him?
On DK, 100%. I'm not doing anything but 100%. I don't think that there's any way around it. This is different than the Naz Reid situation, mainly because you're getting such a ridiculous amount of minutes that are just guaranteed to be there for him. There's no Rondo. So you take Rondo out of Atlanta, whereas before that was kind of the main thing tempering Goodwin from getting run into the 30s. Played 37 minutes. I see no way around it. The only way that you would possibly come up with a reason not to play him is foul trouble. If you were to pick up 2 quick ones, maybe miss out on a little bit of a rotation, get to 30 minutes or something, and then he fails and you're passing a gigantic portion of the field. But I think that anybody not playing Brandon Goodwin, this is just kind of a situation where I can't get away from it. I can't. There's no reason to. We're seeing, as you said, Alex has a very healthy number next to his name here at the moment. I see no way around him being the best piece of value on this slate.
Yeah. Okay. We're on the same page there. I mean, the numbers for me, I also have him at 32.8 fantasy points, which is less aggressive than Awesemo's projection. And, that's not goosing the rates, not doing anything crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's
outrageous.
It's an outrageous price point completely. And I think I'm on the same page with you. I'm curious to see what the ownership looks like in the next run that we get, but definitely right now, barring him being 95% owned or something, still probably a guy you're going to want more lineups than not on DraftKings. On FanDuel though, Eric, are you feeling that that's not as good of a play? I actually don't have his FanDuel price in front of me with all this moving pieces going on here, but sometimes it is different with positionality and you don't need to cram in the value plays quite as much as you do on DraftKings, where every night it's 3 value plays, guys under 4,500 who are in that winning lineup. But how are you feeling about Goodwin on FanDuel? And I guess what's the argument to be made for him on there?
So the argument to be made is that you have more guys that can go off potentially in this spot. You have a ceiling in a guy like Damien Lillard. You have Malcolm Brogdon, who's coming off of an absolute firestorm game, 59.3 over there. You have Reggie Jackson, who I really like as a tournament pivot, maybe a little less so over at 5,600 on FanDuel. You have Rondo 4K that you could take a shot or two on. There's some viability where somebody can just randomly, because of the steals and blocks element to it too. I always try to remember that somebody can spike a 4 or 5 stocks upside out of the middle of nowhere just by getting some random court time. And that's going to look a lot better even for a guy like Goodwin, who might go 15, 8, and 3, and you could still pass him on the way up there. But for the most part, it's a DK lock. And then FanDuel, I'm going to have a bunch. I don't see any way around that as well. But then I also didn't even say Malachi Flynn on the top end there. I think that he just stands out gigantically on that site as well. They're going to have very similar projections, I think, when that gets updated. What we're looking for Flynn and going across.
We actually did just get ownership too, which
okay.
I think could go up a little bit more here because sometimes it does reflect where we are and relative to a slate's lock time and all of that. And Goodwin wouldn't shock me to see this number go up, but 24% on FanDuel projecting this most recent run and 17% on DK, which if that were the case, I mean, he would be, I think, like you were saying, would easily be the lock button play and you wouldn't even think twice about it.
Correct. Yeah. And right now looking at FanDuel, 23.6. I mean, he's getting right around 30, 37, 3,800 over there. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer situation. I expect that number to rise as we're talking, but so long as it's where it's at right now, it's an easy lock button.
Let's talk about the rest of the Hawks. You mentioned Bogdan Bogdanovic, a player who has shown gigantic upside recently, really was showing the uptick without even Trae being off the court. Just John Collins being out has opened enough for him in addition to starting, getting more run, getting healthier. And he's another guy here that I would have projected pretty well. I have some concern because I have him projected a good amount higher than Awesemo. Awesemo has him just shy of 36 fantasy points on DK. Of course, you can always get all the projections for every player on the slate at awesemo.com/join. So keep that in mind here, giving some of them out. But if you want to get the entire picture of a slate, you're going to want to be there every day. But I think he looks really good. The rates to me also jumped out. It hasn't been the biggest sample size, as Adam was talking about on the deeper dive, but a 25% usage rate for him, 18% assist rate, and knowing the ceiling he's had. And also Bogdan honestly just been playing well in the year, just shooting 40% from deep. Hasn't been assisting as well as he has previously in Sacramento, but still doing a little bit in every category. Bogdan, a guy, I think the price point, not fantastic now. It's definitely, been upped a little bit to adjust for the ceiling that he's had in some of these games. I feel like Bogdan, not as much of a priority as Brandon Goodwin, but another play I want a healthy amount of today on DK. And it does seem, if this ownership holds up, 20% for him seems a bit low to me.
Yeah, agreed. And I think I'm right there with you. I'm a little bit higher on him. We've got 9 guys. I'm counting 9 guys active. Also, think about it this way. Okongwu, Mays, Knight, those are 3 guys who are going to be playing almost directly behind Capella, so they're barely going to touch the floor. This becomes a crazy amount of minutes that you're allocating for Bogdanovic. Like, I have a healthier minutes number on him than what I was really expecting to have coming into today. But you take Hunter off the floor, you take Snell off the floor, you take some of these other guys. That's kind of the underrated aspect, is that I think he has such a guaranteed workload, and you have no Lowry and Van Vliet on the other side. This projects to be a pretty close game. I have no problem going to well over the field on Bogdanovic, because I just don't see who else is going to be scoring the ball for them outside of him, Capella.
Yeah, Herter, I would think it's a little bit of a boost too. And, you do have Lou Williams in there. So that is something that changes the equation a bit from perhaps a longer term season sample size. But, those guys, I think if you're getting some of them, that's fine. Herter, I think, fine, especially at 5,300. He and Lou Williams, I think at the same price point, you're probably only playing one of those guys. But I guess the question for you, Eric, would be, are there any other Hawks that jump out? Capella, I agree, is a fine play. I don't think I would want to necessarily build around him as a core play necessarily today, just because I don't think the uptick is that much for him. The usage rates don't really jump up very much without Trae Young. And if anything, I think the assists may be a little bit harder to come by those easy shots at the rim that he gets, just not having a guy like Trae setting him up. But Capella very much in play. Herter, I think, in play. Williams in play. Even Solomon Hill, I could see getting to. But how would you prioritize these guys, Eric? Is there anybody that stands out same way that a Goodwin does or a Bogdan does?
So I'm going to be careful and not say the word stand out, because I don't think Lou Williams stands out. But what does stand out to me is his ownership. And right now, if you're going to be getting around 2% of Lou Williams with 9 active bodies, you've got Collins, Gallinari, Hunter, Reddish, Snell, Dunn continues to be out. Now Trae Young added to the fold there. That's just so many bodies that are down. And if you need some offense coming in, I don't mind the Kevin Huerter play. That's fine, but he's at least elevated 5,300. Makes you at least think for a more shooting dependent guy over on DK today. Solomon Hill, I don't really want to be taking too many shots. I think we have just so many better pieces. And paying $4K for him doesn't feel right now on this slate, especially now that you have a guy like Goodwin on his team that just is the priority play beyond priority play. But I will say Lou Williams is kind of the guy that I think would stick out as somebody that I would want to get a little bit over the field, because we know the kind of upside that can exist there. We've got him projected for 25 minutes. I think there is an opportunity for him to get closer to 28, 30. Should he come out? Should he be knocking down shots? Should he be productive in that run? I think he would be the one that I would probably want to be taking a couple more shots. Hasn't been as good of late, but we did see against the Pelicans in kind of a pace-up spot there too, that he can continue to have some upside. Did play up to 30 minutes there, played 29 the last time out. So 25, which is what Alex has him in pegged for, I think is just kind of a nice conservative number for somebody that you would get a ton of in lineups if you've got up to 28 or 29. But I see a minutes upside that could exist there. So I think getting over the field to him is appropriate too.
Yep. So there you go. So there's your Atlanta Hawks, and that hopefully nothing else will change with the team now that we cover them. That's such great depth, but maybe the ownership. That's the one thing I suppose that could change a bit here. And I think Solomon Hill's the one I would push back on a little bit. The 4K price tag I think isn't great, but on DK, I think because he takes a power forward, and power forward to me is a spot that I'm largely paying up. I got more of him just sorting everything out now than I would have expected. So he does, 13% for him. He's one of the lower owned Hawks. I think I'll be there a little bit more, though I do think conceptually you're right that a guy, Solomon Hill, you want to guess his fantasy points per minute on the year if you don't have it in front of you per minute?
I do not. I'm going to guess 0.6.
0.56. So you're right on the money rounding up there, but that is not a pretty number for Solomon Hill, even though it does seem like whenever you're not playing him, he accumulates the most stats. So that's
him and Tony Snell are the same human being. Well, Tony Snell's a great 3-point shooter, actually, which was shocking going through some of those numbers this year. One of the highest 3-point numbers on the year, which makes no sense. We shouldn't be talking about Tony Snell.
You can see it on the screen there, or it might have just gone away, but the news got alert. Starting for the Raptors, Flynn, Trent Jr., Anunoby, Siakam, Boucher. So the Raptors starters there, nothing too crazy, especially now that we know there's not going to be any Deandre Bembry out there. I want to take some of these super chats, though, because we do have some more teams we can hit on here. We've talked about some of the key news items that have broken recently. We got 2 super chats, and I think this one from Arcathelza could be helpful for more people than just the people asking about an either or. We appreciate all the super chats, so try to make sure we're getting the broadest things possible for you guys while building your lineups. Arcathelza asking, these slates are the hardest with no studs to pay up for. How do you approach a slate with so much value and good mid-range plays, especially for a DK single entry? Eric, you are all about the game theory of all in a way that I feel like hopefully people are enjoying more, that you're doing some more live before lock shows. But for the game theory of this, where there's no studs to pay up for, but you have so much value, how would you try to approach that for a DK single entry?
So this is, if you're on Fantasy Cruncher, this is kind of a little trick that I use that I think just makes a lot of sense. Sort it by salary. So if we're going up to the top, if I just sort by salary for like every player in the pool, don't go by position. If I go to DraftKings, I've got Damien Lollard at 9,500 and I can see his ownership there. I'm generally going to try to get to more of him than the field. Donovan Mitchell, going to get a ton of popularity, probably going to go a little less than the field. Jimmy Butler, somebody that I'm going to get over the field on. Jason Tatum over the field. Figuring out a way to kind of craft and pick what you're going to do at the top end, guys, and working your way backwards. Because I think Goodwin, we've established, like for me, is going to be basically 100% play, which gives me access to as much of these guys as possible. So if I'm looking at it from like a game theory perspective, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do from the top down in terms of leverage. So Paul George, I think I'm still going to be over top of the field on. Domantas Sabonis, I think is a fantastic play that's just going a little bit underrepresented on both. So I kind of am able to pick and choose out of that top, like that top end where I really want to go, because they're the guys who are going to be, they have those salaries for a reason. They're the top projected guys. So when we talk stars and scrubs, it's just the ability to jam in more of the expensive guys along with some of this super value, and then kind of reverse engineer your lineups from there. That's kind of what I do. And I think it's worked out more times than it hasn't on slates like this, where I don't have to think so much about that bottom end because I'm going to get so much of them.
Just to clarify one point, because you said no studs, and people in the chat, or I think one guy, Curtis in particular, saying, what the F? Tatum, Dame, Booker, these guys aren't studs. And I think, these guys could be studs in the way you perceive the NBA. And Dame, I think, certainly will vacillate. But Dame playing with McCollum, I would say not quite a stud, a guy priced under 10K. But I think normally I would say the threshold is guys priced over 10K by how we say the word stud for DFS, not perhaps how we say the word stud when visiting our local Chippendales, which I'm sure we all do from time to time.
Yeah, every single day. COVID especially, I was very lonely and I needed that.
I don't even know if they
affection.
exist anymore, honestly.
I have no
they probably
clue.
don't, but
I don't know. The bow ties freak me out. But anywho, Damian Lillard, like at 11%. So looking at it this way, so I'm not saying that they suck. I'm not saying that they're not the superstars of the league or anything. I'm just saying that they're under 90 or they're under 10K. The most expensive guy on DK is 9,500. And he's projecting out for like 45. You could also do it by my projection and go to that direction. Paul George, going to be the highest projected player on the entire slate by Awesemo. I think that kind of indicates why it is that I'd be looking at him. He's also cheaper than a lot of other guys sitting just above him there. That's just kind of my process of it, especially because now it becomes kind of a no-brainer where I'm going to get fillers in that mid-range, like in the 5-6K range, but really figuring out what I want to do with my studs to act in accordance with somebody who's a lock button for me, like Goodwin. That's how I do it.
All right, we got a couple more super chats we'll hit on, then we'll get back to the rest of the slate here. And guys, smash the like button. In about 8 minutes, we're giving you guys the top 5 owned plays on DraftKings and Fanduel according to Awesemo's ownership projections for free in that special time that we all cherish so much on here called Money Time. So smash that like button now. Get us to a respectable 750 likes, so that way we all win this one moment in time. These super chats, A1 Andy asking rostering 2, Flynn, Devontae, or Trent Jr. For me, Eric, I had no site given on this, but I think it would be for me Flynn and Devontae.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same.
Trent Jr., and this maybe we could talk about real fast. I feel like Trent Jr. just due to regress a little. And this has sort of been the thing that's chafed me with Pascal Siakam, not having the outlier days. And I'm going to be heavy Siakam again today, unfortunately, I think. But still, I think he has a day that's in him where he takes away finally from Trent and also to a lesser extent, Chris Boucher. And I feel like Trent, to me, has just been kind of making it harder for these guys to hit a ceiling. But I just don't see Trent as that guy night in, night out. So I don't know if that's an overarching stance here for you, Eric, but I think in this top 3, at least, I would say Trent Jr. falls off.
Well, I was going to say, I don't mind Trent at all. It's just simply a product of me liking the other two substantially more. I think Flynn and Graham just sit in a better spot today on the context of this slate. But 34 minutes for Gary Trent. I mean, just by looking at some of his usage he's had there recently, 25% usage up against the Knicks, 28.4 in that absolute crazy 17 for 19 game he had against Cleveland. He's going to get shots. He's going to get some of those numbers going that direction, but not a great rebounder, not somebody who's going to get like any assists, kind of a black hole, no assist rate whatsoever, pretty negligible. I think if I were going to take some more shots on him, 6,200 over on Fanduel looks pretty good, where you have to play two shooting guards. But for the most part over on DK, it's just so hard to prioritize a 6K Gary Trent on a slate where you kind of are playing on the polls, where you're playing guys for 8,700 and up, starting at Paul George and working your way up, and then guys under 4K.
Yeah, I'm on the same page here. I think Trent still a perfectly fine play, but I think the 12% for him, I just don't buy. Like, he's had some days that are just outrageously outlier shooting days, and I think that's sort of propping things up. And I was kind of expecting to regress back to the mean a little bit more for him, but that might just be me. One more super chat to hit on, and then we can talk about some of the rest of the slate. Actually, I guess two more. One more came through there, but Sold Dope asking, what's up, fellas, for FanDuel? Would you go Mitchell and Zubac or Lou and Capella? He said lemon pepper Lou or Capella. I don't want to short sell that nickname, but Mitchell and Zubac or lemon pepper Lou and Capella. And I guess he is asking about general construction preferences, but just give me that either or first. For me, it would be Mitchell and Zubac.
God, wings sounds so good right now, actually. I'm
Wings
not even going to lie,
good,
especially at the Magic Castle. But anywho, I like, out of that, I'm going to go Lou Capella for tournaments. I don't know. I do like Zubac. I never will poo-poo on that. And Donovan Mitchell, we've talked about some of his blowout risk, but I don't know. The Lou Capella side of it is very intriguing to me. I think Lou makes for a great tournament play that isn't necessarily getting shown up in the ownership right now.
Okay, that's reasonable. I just like Zubac, I think, a little more than the public does. And Mitchell, I feel, it's sort of going to speak for himself in this spot. Even though having Conley back probably does cut into the upside a little bit more, perhaps, than we've seen. But Mitchell with a 40% usage rate in like 4 straight games is just an outrageous number for him that I don't know if he keeps it up, but I think you definitely have to keep that in mind, that he can very easily break a position on FanDuel. One last super chat that I just saw go by from Heart of Packs with a 3 instead of the E in Heart. So I hope that's the way it's supposed to go. Asking Devontae Graham or Andre Drummond, who is now going to be playing in the DK utility spot. I like both guys, Eric. So you could choose first, Devontae Graham or Andre Drummond on DK.
Well, we'll see what the ownership gets to on Drummond here in the next however long. How about I just say, I'll completely cop out and say whoever the lower owned of the two is, go with them, because they look both pretty fantastic in this spot. I'm probably, if you're just making me pick, maybe I'll go Drummond. I don't know what that ownership will get to in the next however long. So I'm assuming it'll be a little bit lower in 24 minutes. If you were to get like 28 minutes of Drummond, you're going to need him today.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. And I do currently have a little more Devontae Graham than Drummond, 33% Devontae, 25% Drummond for me. So I think I would go currently, this is going to be one more sorting coming through, at least, if not one more crunch coming on if we get any other news. But that is for me with the ownership that we have. How it's
you
going
love re-crunching though. You love it now.
Oh yeah, nothing, especially on a show. It's what a joy to re-crunch 2,000 lineups 7 times when guys like Bembry get rolled out. It's like, well, where are those 20 fantasy points going to go? The answer for Deandre Bembry, a little bit to everybody. That's where that goes.
Stanley Johnson. No offense.
Stanley Johnson, you're getting 15 minutes now, right? Step on up. You're a 1 in a 150 lineup value play to throw in. Now.
There was one show randomly, I don't know what it was, but I ended up I was just not paying close enough attention. It was like early on. I ended up with like 98% Isaac Okoro, and he actually went off. It was just absurd. It was great. And then I ended up winning no money anyway, but like, it's funny how when you're on a show, sometimes you end up like not paying attention to like one small detail. And it was just like the guy who was at the complete top of my sort, and it was not supposed to be there whatsoever. And he had an early lock, and I thought it was later, but yeah, the joys of plugging it, like putting it all together in real time.
Yeah, not the most fun. Here's one prop on No House Advantage that I'm intrigued by, because we talked about Drummond, and we're going to talk more about No House Advantage in the back half of the show, or the last half hour after DraftKings and FanDuel lock, obviously. And make sure you're using that promo code Awesemo if you finish your lineups early. Hopefully a day where you can do that, not worry about news breaking everything. But make sure to go over to nohouseadvantage.com or download No House Advantage in your app store. Use that promo code Awesemo, because if you signed up before or you're signing up for the first time, use that promo code Awesemo. They'll give you a deposit match of $20 right away. that's just free money you can play for yourself at some of their tournaments today, which I have overlaid recently. I'm not sure what the pathway is today, but their big tournaments is 7K slam dunk, 7K guaranteed on there, 3K to first place. That's a nice prize pool on there that a lot of people aren't going to be taking advantage of and might not even fill with the 400 entries on there. So go over to No House Advantage, play on there, and of course use the optimal lineups page if you just want to put in a bunch of lineups on there. Awesemo does all the hard work for you, does all the simming and sorting for you. So just go to the optimal lineups page on the NBA tab at awesemo.com. Let's talk Charlotte real fast, I think, because I talked about Kuzma, but I think Charlotte's going to be more pertinent for people. And that's the second best prop on the board on No House Advantage right now. It looks like, according to Awesemo, at least on the over side of things, Devontae Graham on the assists looks like a pretty good over for him. 89% chance for him of getting over 4.5 assists. And I do like Devontae Graham a good amount today. He's come down because of the Brandon Goodwin value for me, but in this spot, he's been really encumbered all year long by having LaMelo, having Malik Monk, having Terry Rozier in there. Now all those guys are gone. I feel like Devontae Graham, you look at the longer term sample going back to last year, 26% usage, 33% assist rate, no Gordon Hayward there either. I feel like this is a spot for Graham to show he has something worth, more minutes than Charlotte's would given him all year.
Agreed. Yeah. 6,600 also, like, he has access to everything, right at about a fantasy point per minute here over the last month, a little bit more actually. So you're seeing it start to rise here in the absence of Ball. Now you're going to take Rozier off the court. You're taking Hayward off the court. It's just sitting up so good for him here. If I'm going to go into this mid-range whatsoever, which I don't mind because you have some of these super values in Bogdanovic and him sitting right below 7K. As much as I am trying to just like focus on going superstars and scrubs, I think guys like him have 45, 50 point upside pretty regularly in this spot compared to what the public is right now on. So I like being there with you.
Yeah, Devontae Graham, the price point, I think maybe not as appealing as some people might like for a guy like him who hasn't necessarily been there night in, night out all year. But the situation for him, I think, takes a big jump. And before we talk about the top 5 owned players on DraftKings and Fanduel, which we're going to give you guys, so get us one more push here with the likes of 750. If you guys can, hit that like button now. Brad Wanamaker, I think now he's a guy who should come down a bit in ownership because on his face, I think Brandon Goodwin's the better play. But how are you feeling about Wanamaker? Because his role in Charlotte, he's basically been playing his own version of the Malik Monk, Devontae Graham, LaMelo Ball, getting usage, assisting at a high level. He's looked good doing it. And I think people may be going to be under on him a little bit more than they should be just because of this value opening up. So do you have any quick thoughts on Brad Wanamaker before we do the ownership game?
Yeah, you should still play Brad Wanamaker. I don't think that he becomes like an exclusion piece just because you get another point guard in there. And I think just because that price right now at 4,600 on FanDuel just looks ominous, I think I'm still going to probably get over the field there on him too. I think it just makes a nice pivot off of Goodwin, but I'm going to play a lot of him and Goodwin together. On DK, 3,800 is just ridiculous still too for this opportunity that he's going to have today. Plugging him in for like 32, 34 minutes, like 3,800 him and 3,500 Goodwin just make it so easy to do whatever you want to do for the rest of this slate. Plus, we don't have like those, I don't know a better way to put, like Super Saiyan point guard upside guys outside of Damian Lillard. We don't have Doncic. We don't have Russell Westbrook. We don't have Steph Curry. We don't have any of those dudes. So the Super Saiyan opportunity of them putting up 60 just isn't there at the rest of the position. So go down at point guard and spend up elsewhere. I think that might end up being kind of the primary build, but I think people will kind of overlook Wanamaker compared to what they should right now.
I like you going to the anime and NBA crossover. I feel like that's actually a bigger crossover audience than people give credit to.
Yeah, well, no, it's just one of those things. My brothers would always come home and be watching anime, Dragon Ball Z and stuff. I would always be wanting to watch basketball, so it kind of did bleed directly into it. I see the crossover now.
All right, so we just got an ownership update, and honestly, it's changed quite a bit. A lot of things that we talked about.
I'm ready to hear the Goodwin number. Just say it, 65%.
No, so here's the thing. We need to get the likes up before I give it out. Okay. And I hate to do this. I don't want to play this game with you guys. I just want to trust the process. I want to trust that I can look away, come back, boom, we got 750 likes. I can feel good about myself. But these numbers are now so eye-popping that quite frankly, I need to get to that 750 likes. So I'm not going to do a sit-in. I'm not going against anything here, but I just want you guys to hit that like button now, get us to a respectable 750, because you are going to want to hear the number that Brandon Goodwin is at now. I think on the better site you're playing at is changed a lot. It does go up throughout the hour. That is one of the things that happens.
I think it's low still. I think it's low. Yeah. I really think it's low.
It might be low. All right, 754. Thank you, guys. Thank you. See, team effort here. I hate to hold you hostage for likes, but I had to do it because this number is now silly. Top 5 owned players. Let me flip the hat. Jordan Klein's going to hit the cash register because I can always rely on him to have that sound effect at the ready. That's the vibe we share. Top 5 on DraftKings now. Number 1, Brandon Goodwin, 52%. Number 2, Paul George, 42%. This is expected ownership. Of course, it comes from some algorithms that Alex created with the team behind the scenes, our founding team here. If you're not familiar with the ownership projections, of course, you can always get them yourself at awesemo.com/join. Jalen McDaniels, number 3 at 36%. Number 4, Bogdan Bogdanovic at 28%. And number 5 on DraftKings, Devontae Graham, 27%. Eric, out of that 5, Goodwin, George, or Paul George, I'll say, just in case there's any other Georges out there that might be confused. Jalen McDaniels, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Devontae Graham. Does anybody stand out there as overowned? Because I feel like these guys I'm going to have pretty close now. I think, at least based on what the ownership projections were before this update.
They're right. I think Goodwin is low. That I'm going to say that right now. If you think he's going to be in 50%, you are half the field is paying the rake. I think that that's low. And we have the best ownership projections in the entire industry, the entire business. It's ridiculous how accurate they are. So I'm just letting it be known that 51.6% is just a low number compared to what I would expect it to be over on DK. Jalen McDaniels is interesting because we did just see him play 29 minutes. Not a high usage guy. Had 2 just phenomenal games against OKC and Milwaukee. I don't know. I'm at the field right now. And he would be the one guy who I could kind of be talked off of a little bit out of that grouping. Because like Bogdanovic, all the usage in the world. Graham, all the usage in the world. George, all the usage in the world. And Goodwin, so cheap with the minutes. I think there's a case to be lower on Jalen McDaniels that isn't necessarily represented at his 35.6% number. What are you doing with him?
I mean, I actually need to see because the way that the ownership moved, it probably is going to change a lot for me. But I had him, and I have so many tabs open. Jesus Christ. Excel tabs, to be clear, not even Chrome tabs, not even fun tabs, just all different spreadsheets I'm looking at like an asshole. I've got Jalen McDaniels, excuse me, 52% is what I had him before the ownership update. I imagine that might change a little bit, but it's definitely a tough one to figure out. And I agree. I think that Jalen McDaniels, it's easy to imagine him sort of falling just out of the upside that he's shown in the last 3 games where he was shooting over 10 times a game. I feel like with you have more guys moving into the rotation, more guys trying to get their own shots up too, who don't normally get to shoot a ton. And that could have an adverse effect on McDaniels. So I would agree. And I also think too, that's why I'm getting more Solomon Hills because I'm getting Jalen McDaniels less in some spots. So that's not my favorite thing in the world, but neither here nor there.
I like that. Somebody just said that all I do is recommend chalk. Are you insane? Are you insane? I come in here every single time and I come off the rails sometimes. I had a 2% Jakob in 25% of my lineups on DK yesterday. I was way over on JVal and had everybody smash him to an excruciating circumstance on Sunday. Stop it. Just stop it. To say that I like chalk. Also, the chalk on this slate is not comparable to the chalk on other slates. This is different. This is a different situation because they project out for like 8, 9, 10x. Get out of here with your weak sauce. Stop it. Stop it.
If you get an Eric tantrum on a show, you know it's a good show here. So that's
God.
But I know, I feel like you always balance. You do a good job. Not to make this the be nice to Eric show after being mean to Eric on, I think, probably about 700
You can be mean to me. I can
shows.
take it. But also, if you're going to be mean to me about something that I actually do. How about that? When I do funny voices, I don't care. Go ahead and get mad at me. But don't get mad at me saying that I recommend chalk. Get off my lawn, kids.
Here's Eric Lindquist, his recommendation for the top plays of the day. Oh, just follow the chalk players on the ownership projections from Awesemo. Just pick the top 5. Hey, get the top 8 guys on there. You're probably good to go.
Oh my God.
Top 5 owned plays on FanDuel to complete the double here. Number 1, Brandon Goodwin, 52%. Number 2, Paul George, 46%. Number 3, Pascal Siakam, 36%. Number 4, Marcus Morris at 34%. That's an interesting one. Number 5,
That's
Malachi
a big
Flynn.
number for Marcus Morris.
Malachi Flynn, 29. I feel like Marcus Morris stands out to me there. He's fine, I guess. If you're not playing Paul George in particular, I think there's at least a logic to it, but I don't think Marcus Morris is like on the same tier.
Oh yeah, no, I love Marcus Morris because I just love chalky plays. I just love the chalk. I'm like a first grader and just going up to the drawing board. That's how much I love chalk. Just give me all the Marcus Morris. No, I'm not going to play Marcus Morris at 33.8%. I know power forward isn't the greatest spot in the entire universe, but I do like Siakam at the very top end. If you want me to get weird, if you want somebody that nobody else is playing because you're just so interested about my takes, get down there to somebody like Gorgie Jang and go ahead and go. He's under 10% right now. Doesn't project well, 24.5. But if you think there's going to be a blowout and you're going to have a lineup without Mitchell, play Gorgie Jang.
We got a super chat from Shmoney B, and I think I might have missed one earlier. Oh, I got one from Noah too that we'll get in a second. But Shmoney B asking for the best DK play. He also called me Papa Spags, which makes me feel weird, given like I feel like we're now at baby making age, and I'm not there yet. My commitment phobia immediately struck when I saw Shmoney B calling me Papa Spags. But anyone utility spot 3,400 and under. Is there anybody who jumps to mind for you? I'm actually going to sort right now to see if I have anybody for me.
Let me take a look over on DK, obviously, because you can't play 3,400 over on. Gordon Niang. Sorry. Yes, that is correct. Niang. My bad. Utah.
Oh, did you say Gorgie Jang? I feel like
I should know. Yeah, sorry. Gorgie Jang. No, I do not want to play him. He's San Antonio. No, not even here. I meant Niang. My boy from Iowa State is who I am speaking of. But let's see.
I got a couple weird ones I could throw on. Derek Favors to me might be my top projected play. Yeah. Going against OKC, not the best second units against them though. Tony Bradley, I think, looked very spiteful against Philadelphia the other day. Maybe he does the same against Utah, another former team for him, but I think Favors would be my top projected one. And I also don't hate Miaoni as a pivot to George Niang, just because Miaoni's projected for 28 minutes by Awesemo, which did not go unnoticed by my crunches earlier. I think he's less popping up for me as a value play now, but I think if you are you should be playing Brandon Goodwin, to be clear. And I think that's what this is trying to do. But yeah, I could play Favors. I could play Miaoni. I could play, I guess Rondo too at 3,400. I could see playing, but that's probably about it for me in terms of viable plays.
I think the Cody Martin situation.
Oh yeah. That's
would probably be where I would be going 3,200 there. I think he would probably be my top guy. This coaching speak, Cody or Caleb Martin, as if they're the same person, as if they're an amoeba of a human being. Siamese twins, just come on. What is happening in the NBA?
That's an issue that Twins have. I know they have issues with their identities because people just treat them the same. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to the Martins. I'll defend that. James Borrego, your antics won't stand here on the Live Before Lock show. We got Noah DeCumos asking Wanamaker and Tatum or Baisley and Lillard. Baisley, I was shocked, did not project well for me, even with these guys being out. Roby being back in makes it worse. So I would go Wanamaker and Tatum.
Yeah. So on the tip off, I was talking a little bit last night. It's always interesting when you write an article the night before. I try to make it somewhat applicable because, as I said, you never know what the slate's going to turn out into. But I had a pretty good idea that we were going to get Goodwin super chalk, and then ended up coming to fruition. What didn't is that I thought I was going to have a lot more Tony Bradley interest over on DK at 4,000. And I thought I was going to have a lot more interest in Baisley on both sites. But it just becomes an issue of you're paying in that mid 5K range for a guy who is going to get the minutes, but just doesn't have a great fantasy point per minute rate, sitting underneath 9. If he plays 32, 34 minutes, sweet. But I just don't see a need for him on this slate. And he is chalky too. So I would just rather go different directions. How about another guy that's chalky that I'm not playing? There you go.
I love the things that get your goat. Here's another thing that could get your goat that people are saying in the YouTube chat. How's Eric going to respond when Paul George is ruled out tonight? I will say, Eric, if he does get ruled out tonight, I will be right on the same page with you, angrily throwing a tantrum on this show.
Just screaming right there. It'd be not great. It would be not great for me. You guys will see something fun happen. That's for sure.
So even despite the ownership coming up for Goodwin, I am still getting him in 100% of my lineup. So that is even accounting for the ownership, all those things, he still, to me, looks under-owned.
For fun, I took him and Wanamaker and I put them down to 24 and I was still getting them 90%. So I don't know what to really tell anybody. You just play them.
Yeah, they are the guys who make the build work. I think even if they have some shortfalls in their median projection, and it does scream to me a pretty aggressive median projection. But if the guy's projected to play 37 minutes and he's going to be you're not even expecting to be a fantasy point per minute guy, he's going to be under that. I think that's a pretty reasonable play. So yeah, Brandon Goodwin, not going away from me on DK today. Let's keep going through here. I'm going to check the premium Slack to see if we missed any questions in here, because premium Slack, an important part of the Awesemo Plus membership, where you can get easier access to us. You get also, obviously be talking to all your peers all day long. I was trying to figure out like, what's the pitch here? What am I improving to go with the
zipper emoji? Spam the chat right there.
No, but the Awesemo Slack is a big part of the entire process for a lot of people out there. They talk about their plays throughout the day, not just giving them out, but actually, why they think this guy might be good, why this guy might be bad. It's a very good add to what you're trying to do for your NBA DFS process. So go to awesemo.com/join, premium Slack included, even with the express packages. So the cheap ones on there, get the Slack too. Mr. Moneybags, my brother in money branding, always good for a question here during the show. Siakam or Sabonis for a DK GPP? I am getting so much Siakam today, and I've been getting Siakam every day that Van Vliet or Lowry or both have been out. And I'm going to be there again today because I still feel like there's a ceiling there he hasn't hit. And I think one that carves away at some of the other Raptors more than they've shown. But how are you feeling about this one, Eric? Siakam or Sabonis?
I have exactly 34% of both of them. So I don't know what to tell you on DK. It's the exact same situation for me. Like Siakam, I'm a little bit over the field. Sabonis, I'm double the field basically. I would say Sabonis makes for a little bit better tournament play, but they're exactly like, they're looking exactly the same. They're both in the exact same price range. Rather than like picking one, just make more lineups. But also, I do enjoy, I think, the upside that I think Sabonis probably has. Like you're obviously taking Lowry and Van Vliet off, and he's been disappointing in his 3 games here that he's played without Lowry and Van Vliet this season. And we would expect Siakam to be going off a little bit more, but Sabonis has shown this upside constantly. And also, if you look at the first halves he's had in these last 2 games, they've been outrageous. And so he just needed to keep it going. He got in foul trouble last game. So I'm going to be over on Sabonis for sure.
Yeah, I like Sabonis. To me, Siakam projected so well that it was hard for me to sort of get away from it. But Sabonis should benefit in the situation of not having Miles Turner again. The rates for him do take a jump upwards. But I'm going to have half the field of the expected ownership of Sabonis. He's projected for about 19. I'll have closer to 10. So I definitely like Siakam more. I would take him, but I do feel like Sabonis probably going to be under-owned relative to the opportunity, whereas Siakam, it does seem going to be mostly appropriately owned. Markieff Morris also out, which I don't think materially changes a ton for the Lakers. I feel like it just kind of makes Drummond look better, probably Kuzma too, Eric. But do you have any sort of feel here for what the difference would be with no Markieff Morris? Because we haven't seen that a lot this year. He has been mostly reliable in these games without AD.
This makes me upset. I was just hoping to kind of keep Morris in there so I didn't have to play any Kyle Kuzma. Now I'm going to have to get to a little bit. I don't want to. It doesn't feel good. The guy's, I think, legitimately maybe bad at basketball. This is not fun and not enjoyable, but it's a little bit of a spike up for him there. Drummond wasn't going to necessarily be affected. It's going to be a split with him and Harrell. I'm going to have to get to a little bit now. I'm going to cap him at 10% and live my life. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay, that's reasonable. And I'm curious to see what the minutes become for the Lakers. I would think, to me, I had Drummond a little bit already. I think he gets a little more appealing. I think too, the rebounds prop for Kyle Kuzma looks better too. I have some concern of Kuzma's rebound rate just playing alongside Drummond more minutes, but having Morris out too, I feel like makes that pathway a little bit easier. And that is one of Awesemo's top projected overplays on No House Advantage today. So Kyle Kuzma over on the rebounds. The line there is at 5.5, and that should get a little better without Markieff Morris, but we'll see how it looks. Back to the premium Slack for a couple more questions. And let's see, we got Bars asking, do you like Nick Batum as a McDaniels pivot? I don't think I got a single Nick Batum share today. I get it as a price point play, and he does theoretically benefit with not having Kawhi out there, but not enough, I think, with the amount of guys they're going to have in.
So I think the time that you do play Nicholas Batum is a time like this where he's just completely unowned. But now the prices also come up to a place where on this slate, the value is just so much better around him. I won a couple of tournaments on DK on Sunday with Nicholas Batum in the lineup. And so I obviously like him as a basketball player. I was well over the field on that slate. But today, you don't need to do it. There's just really no reason. Can he run into, a double-double? I think he was like a rebound away on Sunday, sure, but not going to be for me.
I feel like I'd go a little cheaper and go to Kennard if you're trying to get different. They're not quite the same positions, I guess. So that could be, if he's playing a power forward, Batum and McDaniels are power forwards. But if you're playing him at forward, I think going to Kennard to me would be a little better projected and more value minded. And then you have some more money to throw somewhere else. So That would be my thought. Let's see. We got Darius Baisley or Ivica Zubac for DK GPP. That is Zubac for me by a very wide margin.
Agreed.
Pick 2 for DK Priest, Siakam, Sabonis, or Tatum. For a FanDuel GPP to specify. For me, I think it'd be Siakam and I guess Sabonis in this situation on FanDuel.
Same.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm trying to think. Are there some teams we haven't hit? I feel like we could talk more about Paul George. I'll be very heavy Paul George. He is still a chalk play of the slate, but I think the value to me makes it even more easy to get to him. And I feel like there's really not a ton of reason to move away. It won't be 100%. It'll be pretty close to him today. How are you feeling about Paul George? And I guess a better question may be two guys who are, sort of in injury aided situations, but Paul George or Donovan Mitchell, who would be more of a priority play to you? I have to presume it's going to be Paul George.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be Paul George. And I don't know, going over to the boom bust tool, obviously you're not going to be ecstatic to see -8%, like -8 leverage on him coming in on 42.4%, 34.4%. He's optimal, but his 32% boom percentage means 1 out of 3 times he's going for 5x plus 10. So that's a gigantic number to be getting 1/3 of the time. And that isn't counting the times where he just kind of gets your average 48 projection that he gets in this spot and still works out to be optimal. So I really like getting to Paul George.
Yeah, and it does. The optimal rates are going to be pretty noteworthy for guys like Paul George and Brandon Goodwin, 2 of the chalk plays on the slate. So that's why that boom bust tool, very helpful to your process. A lot of our guys use it, as I mentioned earlier. Alex uses it as part of his process, sorting things down. So make sure you're going to awesemo.com/join to get that into the mix for yourself as well. Do we have a super chat? I think Jordan might have sent me one. No. All right. I think we're caught up on things. Any teams that we haven't talked about yet that are very important to you? I feel like we've hit on bits and pieces of these teams, and I think sort of established our feelings on the chalk, whether they be good or bad. For you, obviously, you loved every single one and said, please give me more nom 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 nom, like some sort of chalk-based cookie monster. But how are you feeling about the rest of the slate, Eric? Is there anybody we haven't...
for chalky, that's good enough for me.
Is there anybody you don't, or we haven't talked about that you like, that you feel like is underrepresented in what we talked about on the slate?
No, I am upset, and I therefore don't want to make my feelings shared. Yeah, no, now I'm going to just keep the goods for myself. Zubats, you brought up being 15%. I think getting over the field. This is also a 6-game slate. It's not like we have an infinite number of ways to get to a 3% guy on this slate that's going to break it. Like, they're 3% for a reason. Because there aren't that many places to pivot that's viable. I think Jason Tatum against Portland has the kind of ceiling at 9,200 over on DK that I would still want to be over that 15% number. Chris Boucher, we know the kind of ceiling he can have. I think they just need more offensive output. I would probably go against playing him and Siakam in the same lineup, just because I think both of them, it's going to come down to just usage and being able to really, really score the basketball. And, Greg made a lot of his concerns known about Chris Boucher today, but I still can't quit him. He's still my boy, and I got to be over the field on him as well. Looking down here to this under 10% range, I mean, Kyle Kuzma, I just brought up. I think Morris, he might not get the kind of attention that he deserves for getting a bump here. He's been so bad of late, but we've got a couple of 40 spots within his last 10 in the game log, and has a usage upside that exists there. It took 20 shots in 2 or 3 games here in the last 10 as well. So there's definitely a shooting upside that exists for Kuzma with all these other pieces gone. So I'm going to be over the field there too.
One guy that we haven't hit on that I just feel like I saw projecting pretty well today, and I'm honestly I never love it because Kemba Walker, just one of the banes of my existence on that Boston team, that just has too many guys there sharing just one ball. And I think having Fournier out's been a little more helpful for guys. Tatum especially recently showing some more upside, but Kemba Walker, I think the price point to me is somewhat appealing on DraftKings, and he stands out. I did get some of him in Tatum, but were there any Celtics popping up meaningfully? I know that Adam mentioned them as being interesting tournament plays, and they are guys who don't project terribly well in a slate like this, where you're going to have so many value plays or plays that look like 7x, 8x values on the slate. I do think going to one Celtic is one way to get different, but still capture a lot of upside going against Portland.
Yeah, and that's Kemba's your guy. I think Jason Tatum's going to be mine, mainly because I think that he has the most, he has the highest highest probability for sure, I think, of going for 55 plus out of that entire grouping. Jaylen Brown's been pretty good too, but I think Tatum is kind of the guy that I'm just siding with. We have all the salary in the world to use, so why not go up for the guy with the highest ceiling out of the grouping? Definitely not disliking Kemba Walker as your play there for a tournament pivot, but for me. I'm just going to do it elsewhere because I am so chalky, so chalky at point guard.
And he is going to be, Tatum will be less owned than guys like Siakam, guys like Domantas Sabonis at similar positions. So that's one way, I suppose, that Eric is not being a chalk donkey for all the people out there who think he's just ripping.
Way to defend me. Thank you. Defending my honor, Spags. You've turned a new leaf.
I've done enough shows with you to know that, like, I think it's an unfair criticism. Believe me, there are a lot of fair criticisms for both of us, but that is
Thank
not
you.
one.
Thank you. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're a polarizing personality. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, you know what? I would rather have the people love me or hate me. It's still an obsession. Love me or hate me. That is the question.
Swanson79 asking, is Drummond a fade or a smash on DK? I'm playing him, I think, a bit less than I expected. Let me just see my exact exposure. I'm playing him 10% of my lineups. So I'm going to be under the field. It looks like. I think he's a good play. I think actually he might be a little bit higher. I didn't put in Markieff Morris or change that for myself.
If that helps anybody.
Okay.
I capped him at 50 because I couldn't stomach anymore. I was getting more. So just letting that be known. I think that he's an absolute smash. And again, if he gets to 28 minutes, you're going to need him.
I think it's worth pointing out too that Charlotte's going to be less efficient than they normally are, not having Rozier. Like, they're going to miss more shots today, and that's certainly a spot that a guy like Drummond is going to theoretically capture some more upside. So I don't hate the play of Drummond. I kind of wish I had a bit more. Yeah, he projects well. Nobody really took a big jump up for me though with Morris being out. I guess Schroeder looks more playable, but Kuzma to me is still not looking fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't say he looked fantastic, but I think that there's upside there. Sure. And I think there's a ceiling there for tournaments. And if you're trying to target that, which is what I'm kind of trying to do by not being super chalky, that's how I'm going to do it.
Just really rub it in their faces every time.
That's okay. It's fun. I'm having fun. They're having fun. It's back and forth. If you're going to give it, you got to be able to take it too.
Yeah, that's true. That's what we say
Chat
here.
Just gives it is what it is. Chat does not take it ever.
KRG asking, is Malcolm Brogdon a viable option today for a DK GPP? I thought Brogdon would be in more lineups for me today, and I don't think I got him in a single one because of all the value opening up, but he projects
I'm getting to a lot because I thought he was going to be super popular after last game. I was expecting like 25, 30%. I thought that people were going to come out with the pitchforks and just like start storming the castle. I thought that was going to be what happened. I mean, the guy just went for 60 plus, was super efficient, was fantastic in that game. I expected more ownership there, and I think it's just a product of this slate. On Fanduel specifically is where I was getting to a little bit more, where I'm trying to not be so chalky.
It looks good to me on a DK as well, the play of Brogdon. I just didn't get there because of the value. And again, going to be so heavy on Goodwin that takes away one point guard spot. Brogdon, not point guard, shooting guard, just straight point guard. But I think he's a fine play. Like, I have no issue with him. I think he actually would be my favorite pacer besides just Sabonis always kind of being in play on Fanduel in particular. And really that power forward spot with Sabonis, I feel like he just fills it no matter what site he's on. Yeah. Super chats here to hit on real fast. D Niz asking Jaylen Brown and Gobert or Drummond and Tatum. It's an interesting one.
Drummond and Tatum.
Yep,
yeah. Same.
One more super chat here from M Jazz saying thoughts on Butler for a FanDuel GPP. I know the game sucks though. Butler, I think, but yeah, Butler looks okay. The guy that I was getting more of earlier was Kendrick Nunn, just because of the minutes the expectation that he's going to start again with Oladipo out. Butler, I think, is fine, but I on FanDuel, I don't know. I don't really know how that construction would go today.
Yeah, agreed. I like it. It's fine. Butler, he's got a ceiling, but I've just kind of been lighter since Bam got back. We saw a lot of those big upsides from Butler, sans Adebayo, but he can still get there. No issue.
Yeah, I think, this is one thing that I say with Butler, these kind of grit and grind type of games. And I think on FanDuel especially, he's actually going to be pretty decently owned on FanDuel. But Phoenix, this is a team that is going to force the half court, going to play slow. And I think that does sometimes play into Butler's strengths more. So I don't hate the play on DraftKings. I would have a pretty hard time getting there, though, I think. But FanDuel looks a little better. Let's see. Trey Prince, welcome to Awesemo. Yeah, you guys can also join the Awesemo channel whenever you want. Gives you a fun little avatar, some more emojis, and then just allows you to be seen a little better for questions and all of that. So feel free to join the channel here. If you're on desktop, click the join button underneath the video. That'll give you everything you need on there. And we got 3 minutes left to DraftKings and FanDuel lock, but we will be on an extra half hour talking No House Advantage, as well as any other news that breaks along the way. So hang out here with us. You can tilt with us. You can see hopefully Paul George playing well for the sake of all all involved.
Yeah, especially me. Yeah,
Especially you.
True. I'm simmering a little on the surface, just waiting for something. On the surface, I'm calm and ready to drop bombs.
Also, Jordan, did you post the GIF that you sent to us in chat or to me in chat? Okay, you did.
Easy. What?
Okay, I just want to make sure that Jordan
talking shit behind my back now.
No, it's apparently a Billy Madison GIF that's been workshopped to have you clapping the erasers and getting the chalk out because you believe no. And honestly, the one thing I will say about the channel, everybody always make sure to use your acting headshot so you look the most beautiful that you can.
Oh, it's just the eyes. You just look down the barrel of those puppies and it's just shocking that, I'm not in everything, but it's fine.
I think in a lot of ways, Eric, you're our vanity smurf here. The awesome. Just you in the mirror, just making sure you're blue.
I'm trying to get my lineups in on Fanduel, okay? Give me 4 seconds. There we go.
Mr. Moneybags asking Wanamaker and Jaylen Brown or Graham and Morris for a Clippers DK GPP. I guess he's saying no. Morris from the Clippers for a DK GPP. He's not playing Markieff. So that question again, Wanamaker and Brown or Graham and Morris. I think for me that'd be Graham and Morris.
Yeah, I like that too. But I'm not going to be super high on Morris. I mean, you said DK or Fanduel?
Yeah, DK.
Yeah, DK fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think for DK, that looks fine. Morris, the chalk play on FanDuel, not quite as good. On DK, though, I think you can sort of make that case more. And I would say the same thing, though, that if you're not playing Paul George, I think that play even more appealing, though Morris can certainly get there in concert with him into spot two. Very high total in this game with Indiana. 233 combined total is kind of shockingly high for what we think about Indiana and the Clippers, I guess.
Indiana's been playing at a crazy pace of late. I think it's been like the last month and a half that they've really kind of started to take off. Those totals have just been going up and up and up every single day. And I keep betting unders and not getting there. So I definitely think there's something to that.
Yeah, that's fair. Trey Prince joins the channel that immediately says, stop throwing shade on Marcus Morris and promoting Zubac. Or he said downplaying. I said shade because I just lost the chat, but stop promoting Zubac and downplaying Marcus Morris. You know what? It's weird because I don't really feel that differently about these guys. And I got 10% Zubac and just, I guess, 3% of Morris. But they're both fine plays. They just don't really stand out to me on a day where there's so much value to go to.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Get your lineups in.
Last minute here. If you're hearing this right now, it's probably already locked, but get your lineups in if you haven't yet and get your ass over to nohouseadvantage.com and put in that promo code Awesemo because they'll deposit match you whether you're a new user on there or a previous user. $20. They'll match you with that promo code Awesemo. So just free money for you to play some lineups. And that's honestly No House Advantage, a site that we talk about a lot more now. I'm definitely paying more active attention every single day because of the tip-off show. And there are sometimes props that are just like, what? How did this even happen? Yesterday, Eric and I were doing the show and Ben Simmons was projected for 13.5 assists. And I honestly didn't check the box score. I have to presume he didn't hit the number. Otherwise, our own Josh Engelman would have been everywhere today, shoving that in everybody's face. But that line just made no sense. And it's a good thing for you guys because having lines that make no sense can be a big benefit. That's basically like having a 3K guy who's, looks like he's guaranteed to smash. That's what No House Advantage is. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if they did that deliberately. Just gave you guys little Easter eggs if you actually are paying attention on there.
Yep. 13.5 was a large number of assists for Ben Simmons to get to yesterday. He did not get there, shockingly enough.
Yeah, no, yeah. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed that Ben Simmons continues to phone
Not you
it
and
in?
me, bud. Not you and me.
I bet I saw that there was a clip of Devin Booker and Kendall Jenner playing Pop-A-Shot, and Booker outscored her by a lot, but she had a 70 point game in Pop-A-Shot. And I was like, she actually might be a better shooter than Ben Simmons. Like if you gave her a chance.
Yep. I would agree with that. Also, Jordan, I can't get over the chalk, the Billy Madison. That was so good. Blue.
All right, let's do some No House Advantage now because we are locked for the first game on the slate. No House Advantage. A bunch of props we would have advocated taking would have been from that Clippers game, but they are not available, so keep that in mind. We just got a fresh run here of the projections, and Kyle Kuzma now looks like the top play overall in No House Advantage for the overs, and actually, yeah, he's the top play overall, including the unders as well. The rebound over for Kyle Kuzma, 5.5 as a line. Awesemo has him for 8.2 and a 92% chance of hitting. And I do have to say, Eric, I feel like I'd have some more confidence in Devontae Graham's assist prop. That to me would be my 10-pointer today. He has a 90% chance of getting over 4.5 assists according to Awesemo, but I feel a little bit better about that one than Kuzma playing alongside Drummond. But if you had to choose, which one would be the 10-pointer for you, or would it be something else that we haven't even talked about yet?
Well, we got something to talk about, that's for sure. The Lakers starting lineup came out, and I just want you to take a look at that while I'm talking. But Devontae Graham, I think, is probably a little bit more secure at that 4.5 assist numbers. He's going to have to do everything. 5.5 for Kuzma. I definitely don't want to ever besmirch the boss man, because I think that Kuzma is definitely one of the best props on the board. Absolutely for that over a 5.5. But I'm pretty sure that Devontae Graham in a little bit better situation, and it's a negligible number. I mean, we're basically looking at 4% between the two. Kuzma, I think, might have been factored in with Drummond in or out and kind of being the middle ground. Now that Drummond's in, I think maybe I'd take him down a slightly off of that 91.66 number. And so Devontae Graham for sure is kind of who I'd be going to.
Yeah, I think that's where I am too. Devontae Graham, just, not having the primary ball handlers is a very big thing for a guy like Graham, who was pretty good last year. People forget that he came onto the scene and people were like, wow, who is this guy? And he just sort of, cooled down a little bit, as young players are inclined to do. But I think this year has shown that he can actually, be more productive in limited spurts. And now's his chance, I think, to show, to put together all the teachings that he's had playing alongside some better guys this year. And his shooting, for me, like the number's not fantastic, but 55% true shooting. Normally shoots about 9 3-pointers a game, or I guess a little bit over 8 now, but the longer term sample going back to last year, 9 3-pointers a game. Like if he puts up 9 threes and you get him assisting a little bit more and you get, the sort of variability of all that, I feel like Devontae Graham, just one of the stronger plays for DFS. And one way to get different, I guess, to know how to disadvantage would be to play the points and assist prop instead of just assists. But overall, I think Devontae Graham, probably one of your better plays to go to, guys to look at. This Lakers lineup, though, Schroeder, Caldwell Pope, Horton Tucker, Kuzma, Drummond. We also got some questions about playing Charlotte guys from tall to God, playing 3 Charlotte players and running it back with Drummond and DKGPP. I think, what do you think about this Lakers lineup? Because I guess it makes THT more in play, but he's going to be less productive playing alongside Kuzma, I would think. So I don't think it really changes much in terms of the guys I'd actually want to play.
No, so I mean, for me, it was just interesting to see Horton Tucker in there, not Wesley Matthews, because I mean, Wesley Matthews sucks. Like, I just don't. He's not very good at the game of basketball, which I think is his job. So I don't necessarily want to. I don't think anybody on planet Earth was going to play Wesley Matthews today, but Taylor Horton Tucker was always somebody that if he was going to get up to like 30 minutes or so. Let me just pull up some of his rates here at the moment. Yeah, 0.92 fantasy points per minute on the season. 5,300 kind of makes me have a little bit of hesitation from wanting to get there. But over on Fanduel, where you're able to play, he's 6,500. Yeah, that's unfun. Okay, that's a bummer. I was hoping he was going to kind of be something similar there. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to pass over there, but DK 5,300. I'm curious when I recrunch here in the next 10 minutes, what's going to pop up in terms of him once that gets updated. Because right now we had him in for around 22 minutes. I'm going to move that up considerably. So I think it's 26, 27. Wes Matthews
for 29.
Oh, that just updated already? Wow.
No, I think he had it already. I think he had it just with Morris being out. So I guess he might have actually guessed the starting thing correctly.
Wow.
I mean, shocker, right? That Awesemo, who knows rotations better than anybody, would have guessed correctly.
Is he any good at this? Is he any good? I mean, I'm sitting here with my little stupid Excel spreadsheet acting like I can do it better. I cannot do it better. 28 minutes. Good Lord. Yeah. Give me a little bit of him there. I'll get to a tiny bit, but nothing major. What it does is I think it does help me come off of a little bit of the Kuzma that I had. I'll be a little tiny bit lighter probably on this next run, because you put him in there at 0.92 fantasy points per minute and you take off Wes Matthews, who sucks. I'm probably going to think that that's going to hurt Kuzma a little bit.
I guess the one ding potentially to the overall construction of the team would be that he does rebound. No, he's a worse rebounder than Markieff Morris. So there should be more boards to go around for both like Kuzma rebound prop as well as Drummond to do what he does. And I think too, and this is sort of an eye test thing / having seen more than enough Lakers games out here on the West Coast. Taylor Horton Tucker, I kind of think is going to make Drummond a better play, because he's the kind of guy who's going to dive towards the rim and just give little easy buckets to Drummond to get his bunny shots in or get his actual rim runs in. So I think the spot, gets a little better for Drummond, just having Horton Tucker out there as opposed to Markieff Morris, who's just going to shoot up his corner threes, get up his shots, and not really add a lot of value to the overall team construction. And I think that's just reflecting the assist rates, where you have Horton Tucker as a 19% assist rate guy in the year, Morris just an 8% guy. I think the net benefit here is probably going to be to Drummond.
Yep, I agree with that too. I think, oh man, it's just going to be I mean, Taylor Horton Tucker, I've always liked. And again, that's just another Iowa State bias, but he's actually, I think, very good at basketball. And it's been strange that they haven't given him like any extended run for a while here now. This might be an opportunity to kind of flip the script on that. They've got no other options. There's not really somebody that's going to pop up. They can't make any trades. There's nobody they're really going to be able to acquire. I thought maybe Kem Birch was a guy that made sense to go get for them. That didn't happen. He ended up in Toronto / Tampa Bay. So pass on that.
Kem is a proud Canadian, so that's why I think that was a natural fit. Even though they're not playing in Canada, sense. I guess he gets the reciprocal fame that comes. And Canadian fame, nothing like it. That's what we all say.
Oh, man. Nolan Kelly. Shout out.
He's not Canadian anymore, I think, right? He's now in a... Well,
he's he's a Wisconsinian. There it is.
Our director of content or head of content, whatever the titling is for Nolan Kelly. You see it on the channel before, I'm sure. He is a proud Canadian ethnically, if not currently in his location. Charlotte, though, playing three of these guys alongside Drummond, I think, I'm talking myself than Drummond a bit more, though I'm not going to change my exposure. I feel good about 10% for him, just how my lineups looked. But playing three Charlotte guys and Drummond, I don't hate the move. The one thing that I do have to say, though, Cody Zeller is a value play. We didn't talk about it during the main part of things, but Cody Zeller, I think, is a pretty solid play today. His usage over the longer term sample without those guys looks good. So I think that's the one caveat I would have, that I think Zeller would be one of the three Hornets I would play more than the field did, definitely based on the ownership I'm seeing right now.
He's not starting though. That makes it difficult.
Oh, did he? Oh, I missed that line. Oh,
yeah, I was just making sure that I didn't miss that, but we got Biyombo because of course we got Biyombo in the starting lineup. Why? Because when you have Bismack Biyombo, you must start Bismack Biyombo. And otherwise we've got Bridges in the starting lineup too. Caleb Martin is the guy. He ended up being the chosen Martin today.
Okay. So that I guess that knocks it down a little bit more. And honestly, I would say, not that Zeller's any great shakes, but playing Biyombo, I would think is actually going to be an additive for Drummond. So anyway, point being, I don't hate the construction for that question, the premium Slack. I believe that was from Tall to God. So three Hornets plus Drummond seems fine, though, not exactly an uncommon build, I would say, based on the ownership. Back to No House Advantage, some of the other props on the board. And let's go down a little bit deeper to some of the 50-50 ones. And you guys can all go to the optimal lineups page for No House Advantage. If you want to see the lineups that are going to be the best ones according to Awesemo, you can just plug them in on the CSV upload on No House Advantage. Very simple to do that. But some of the other top props, just to make sure to give these people them. Darius Baisley's points and assists over looks popular on there. Don't like Baisley on DFS. Do you think this prop looks pretty good? 78% chance of hitting. Norman Powell's points plus assists prop. I don't like, it doesn't feel low, but I guess it does have a 77% chance of hitting. I don't have the most confidence in that one, but it does seem like that's a pretty high one. So maybe more of a 5 or 6 pointer for me, but Awesemo's number 4 overall on the overs. Yusuf Nurkic's rebound prop, another over here for Awesemo, 76% chance of hitting, 76.5, I guess. I feel like Nurkic props I'm fine with right now. I think the minutes for him look pretty good. But Eric, out of those props for you, Baisley, Powell, Nurkic, do these guys jump out to you at all? Or there's some other spots you'd want to go to? Because these aren't the most star-studded names, even though they do have the highest probabilities according to Awesemo.
No, I definitely like the over on the Powell ones. I think that he was somebody at low ownership that I was getting off of the chalk by playing over on DraftKings a little bit. It's kind of an underrated game environment. Celtics, Trailblazers. I don't think nobody's really garnering any ownership, maybe a little bit towards Tatum. He's just into the teens. You liked Kemba. Finding pieces of that game and targeting somebody to see a little bit extra usage is not the worst idea in the entire world. We're seeing some big minutes from him of late. I do like the over on Norman Powell for a lot of these props going up and down. Looking elsewhere, I think, Baisley's somebody who over on 3-pointers, he's going to be out there for 34, 35 minutes. I think the over on 1.5 is just fine. How many does he average per game? I mean, that takes you all of like 2 seconds to go over to Basketball Reference and basically say, how many 3-pointers is Darius Baisley attempting? And then you have to factor in the fact that there's no Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, no Al Horford there. Probably going to see even just a little bit more of them. So on a per game average, he is averaging 5.1 threes per game this season. Really like the over on 1.5, regardless of the fact that we're not high on him for DFS purposes. That took 5 seconds.
No, I think that's a good one to go to. And I have that number in front of me too. And I feel like that's for Baisley, certainly getting more shot opportunities good. And he's been not a great 3-point shooter, only a 30% shooter on the year, but was a 32% shooter going back to last season. So maybe some positive regression due his way there too. That does tend to come when you just have less guys out there, less star players taking those shots. So Beasley, I think more of a logical play. I know House Advantage today for several of his props on there. Let's go to some of the under ones, because these are also have some high probability chances on a few of these. And Chris Paul's assist prop under 9.5, according to Awesemo, an 87% chance of hitting. And this is an interesting one because I do think both he and Booker have been playing well, but Booker to me is the one who stands out more, assisting at a higher level, also been getting up more shots. It does have a negative impact on Chris Paul. Like I would have Chris Paul projected for 7.4 assists today. It looks like Awesemo has him for 7.75. That to me, I think is probably a pretty strong one to put in there as an under bet, taking maybe an 8-pointer or a 9-pointer. I'd put it behind Devontae Graham, but I honestly might put it ahead of Kuzma's rebounds.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know, but
it's more volatile. It's
pretty close. It's definitely more volatile for sure. Chris Paul, 9.5 is a hefty number for that over under. Yeah, I'm definitely kind of leaning on the side of the under there too. Part of it too, and I'm curious. I've got to figure out a way to look this up here too in the next minute or so. Maybe you have a faster method of finding it, but I'm curious, how many assisted shots does Chris Paul have towards Devin Booker in the course of a game? Because I'm assuming most of Chris Paul's assists are to anybody but Devin Booker. Devin Booker kind of creates quite a bit for himself. I haven't watched a ton of Suns basketball this season. They kind of go at a more slower, lethargic pace. They're kind of a tougher team to target. They've been so good defensively. Seems like I'm never really playing that many of those guys for fantasy outside of like targeting Devin Booker ceilings. I'm curious, like Chris Paul, I think his assists have probably been trending down of late purely because Devin Booker's been spiking more ceilings and he's able to create his own shot, able to do things in the scheme of the offense to score for himself. I think that's why we're seeing that under as such a strong play for Chris Paul. That's just my personal theory on it. I haven't backed it up with data.
I only have the overall numbers for Booker and his assisted twos and assisted threes, but 40% assisted twos for him, which is, pretty much in line with some of the star wings out there. Jimmy Butler's at 36%. And then he's 67% on his threes, which is actually pretty low too for, like guys like DeAndre Ayton is assisted on 100% of his threes, not the most surprising, but Mikal Bridges gets assisted on 99%. So like, it's probably, if Paul does get there, it's likely going more to Bridges and Crowder and, I guess Cam Johnson, but he's not really a guy meaningfully in the rotation. Sarge too, definitely getting.
If Jay Crowder knocks down 8 3-pointers in the first half again, Chris Paul's probably running into 9.5 assists and you're screwed. So enjoy that.
Would you try to correlate that at all? I mean, this is one of the things I know House Advantage where I have not done enough lineups to really feel that way, but have you ever tried to pair something like that together where you're taking an over on, let's say Booker's points prop and then taking the under on the assist prop too, to try to get, I guess, positive leverage for yourself on two things that are probably decently projected?
So we were talking a little bit today, and something that I've done on NHA quite a bit is I kind of stack a game. I think that makes a lot of sense. And you can do it in a way where you're not just saying points over, points over, points over. There's going to be advantageous props. Like you can go, I guess PJ Washington's out, but Devontae Graham, his assist prop is definitely something that I think you'd want to be getting on top of. Miles Bridges, now that he's in the starting lineup, I think that we're going to see that number. I think it would project even a little bit higher than the 23.22 we're seeing for his projection for Awesemo. I think Miles Bridges really sticks out as somebody to take the over on. I think you pair him, both of those plays, you pair him maybe on the other side of the game too, going to the Lakers, taking it over there. You're with the Kuzma rebounds per se, just kind of basically targeting that entire game to shoot out and be able to capture all of that upside in your 10, 9, 8, 7 point slots. And then if one of those games or one of those props trips up in another spot that projects out well from a different game, we're talking Chris Paul ends up getting to 9.5 assists, gets to 10. That's going to be something that I think will be pretty popular over there. If you go Darius Baisley, people are going to be targeting the over. If they put that near the top as well, something that has nothing to do with this game in general, you could be looking at a huge edge.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. And I'm actually waiting to see if the minutes are going to switch around for Cody Zeller not starting from the Awesemo minutes, because I don't think they've taken a run yet, because Bismack was already in for 22 and Zeller was in for 26. And I'm wondering if maybe if Awesemo is just going to keep it as this, even though Bismack is starting, that maybe Zeller still ends up seeing more run just because he's more reliable. But I need to know this sooner than later so I can make my swap. So Cody Zeller hanging in the brink for me.
Yeah. How about Gary Trent right off the bat, 5 points and a steal? That's
he just keeps doing it every
minutes.
game. It's so frustrating.
Every game. Well, I mean, he's getting 15, 20 shot attempts a game right now. That also is pretty predictable, I think. It's just a question of him making 17 out of 19 of them or not. And then being on a court, you can run into some steals as a guard. That's not going to be shocking to me in any way, shape, or form. But would be nice for him not to completely destroy the slate because I think I'm a little bit lower.
Somebody in the YouTube chat was asking if we could show how to import the lineups from the optimal lineups page. Jordan's producing on there and he's got the screen up, but it's really simple. It's the same thing as Fanduel and DraftKings. You're just pulling the CSV out there and literally just copy pasting from the import lineups page, or the lineups page rather, that we have on Awesemo. If you go to the NBA tab, I'll drop the link in there because this might be helpful for people doing anything last minute, but it's honestly the exact same thing as Fanduel and DraftKings. You're just a little bit of a different interface. Here's the link for the optimal lineups page. There you go. And I'll even say optimal lineups page because that's how much I care. All right.
You're so helpful, Spags. That is the first thing I think of is how helpful you are.
That's what I'm known for. My gregarious nature is generally what people are jumping out with. The props here, by the way, honestly, I'll read you guys one of the optimal lineups if you just want to take the most optimal one here, just to expedite the process for anybody out there, because we talk about a lot of props. Very easy to build your no house advantage lineups for yourself, but sometimes people just want to be spoon-fed a lineup, and this is the one time we'll do that and not have it be an ethical quandary like it would be on DraftKings or FanDuel. But Chris Paul's assists under would be Awesemo's 10-pointer in an optimal. Kyle Kuzma's rebounds over would be the 9-pointer. Yusuf Nurkic's points plus rebounds plus assists over would be the 8-pointer. 7-pointer Tyler Hero's points under 15.5 would be the 7-pointer. 6-pointer Devontae Graham's points plus rebounds plus assists. That's the over on 24.5 for 6. The 5-pointer would be, I think Eric just talked about playing some Hornets. Miles Bridges points plus rebounds plus assists over on that one for him would be his 5-pointer. 4-pointer Robert Covington's 3-pointers made under. The 3-pointer Darius Baisley's points and assists over, and the Norman Powell points and rebounds over would be the 2-pointer, with the 1-pointer being Devin Booker's points and assists on the under. So that's interesting there. So that's one that feels like it kind of negatively correlates, but I guess the concept of having both those in there would just be that Phoenix underperforms, or I guess some of the other guys get there without needing Chris Paul's help.
Have a sip of water. Good Lord. You just went on
this time on this half hour. So
that was so well. I mean, no, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. That was something. That was something. We're just going to hit all the comedies. By the way, what's the last good comedy movie that you saw? I was trying to figure that out last night. Haven't thought of one in a while. It's been a hot second.
I would say the one, and this is honestly, I don't even know what's the most recent one, but it comes to mind. Good Boys, like the little kids in it doing like their version of Superbad. I enjoyed quite a bit more than I would have thought. Not normally a fan of little swearing boys, just in general, or in my film products, but I thought that was pretty good. The Barman, whatever one I watched with my girlfriend, it was like, okay, but it wasn't exactly my cup of tea. It was funnier than I thought it would be though.
Okay. Yeah, we're trying to find something. So if anybody wants to hit us up with a movie recommendation, it's been a while since I saw a movie that I thought was like flat out funny. Like I've seen some good movies, like Promising Young Lady was a good movie, or Promising Young Woman was a good movie.
Not a comedy, not the funniest.
Not a comedy, not a comedy. It's like the dad in American Pie. What is it? What is that line? We're going to move on.
We also got the projections update here, and Zeller did not take a turn downwards in minutes. So I guess I'm just going to ride with Cody Zeller in the hopes that if Awesemo, if you hear me, hey, Awesemo, please, if you hear me right now and you don't think Cody Zeller is going to play 26 minutes, just give me some sign, like an update in the projection, so I don't play more Cody Zeller than I should, because it's a lot of Cody Zeller.
A sign. That's right. That's Train. Don't mind me.
I normally don't like playing guys off the bench, but I feel like Zeller against Andre Drummond and Harrell, like he has to be playing minutes, and he can earn his way to more. I just want to believe in him. I love Cody Zeller so much for some reason. Only in DFS.
That's a strange one. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Zubac's won me 6 figures, so I have an actual reason to love that man. That's flat out my absolute boy. He ended up having like his first 50 plus DK game where he's like the only guy left in my lineup like 2 years ago. And it was just crazy when he was with the Lakers. But yeah, Cody Zeller is a random stand to be.
You know what? I like the fact that he does his job. Like to me, he plays like how I would play as somebody who's like not like, who wouldn't be like an exemplary talented guy. He honestly plays how I play in NBA 2K when I'm playing the park and with all the guys online. Because when you play online with all the guys, they're just jacking up threes. They're just like, all their guys are maxed out dribbling. And my guy just made like to have fun playing by myself. Didn't realize, tried to make a Giannis, ended up making a Cody Zeller. But I just enjoy screening and rolling, trying to get easy baskets, trying to help set up my teammates. That's what brings me joy in NBA 2K. And I feel like Cody Zeller would agree with that sentiment.
Jordan.
I mean, Jordan gets it. He knows he's been in the NBA 2K streets.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was such a specific thing that he was seeing play out in his mind. Oh, man. Spags can love who he wants, Eric Lindquist. It's 2021. What? I totally think Spags can love who he wants. When did I say anything wrong? I think he can love Cody Zeller as hard and as fast as he wants to love Cody Zeller. That is
passionately.
Sure.
It is passionate love for Cody Zeller.
It's not my guy. He's not mine, but it's Spags. Different strokes for different folks.
Let's see. There are no Cody Zeller props at No House Advantage that I can see right now, unfortunately. So, we did just get a protections update, which I feel like could be Awesemo answering my prayers in the adverse fashion if I had to. Yeah, Cody Zeller down to 22 minutes. So I'm glad I could help everybody else out there. I'm curious. He honestly still might project well for me because I did update his rates to the longer term going back to last year, and they were silly. They were silly rates for Cody Zeller for sure.
You're so sad right now. I'm sorry.
I'm a little sad that I have to fucking redo it. I guess it doesn't
matter. Watch him go for
apparently
20 minutes and like 48 DraftKings points. That would honestly be just like the best case scenario. 22
minutes from Awesemo. I would still have him at a 26 fantasy point projection, but that may be a bit aggressive. But I think he's clearly not going to be. It's not going to be as highly owned as he should be. Give me some of your flyer dart throw no house advantage props while I fix the Zeller conundrum for myself, where my heart and my lineups are now in direct conflict.
All right, so we're looking at this Portland game as well. I think that this is a nice one to be stacking, looking at some of these middle numbers as well. Norman Powell sitting up there with the points, rebounds, and assists. We were talking about him a little bit earlier. I think the points and assists make the most sense, sitting a little bit better, 76.97 for Alex right now. If you go down to Nurk, points and rebounds, being able to like attach another caveat to the play and just basically stacking the game to shoot out. If you like the overs, and Alex definitely likes a lot of these overs, I think that makes a lot of sense. CJ McCollum, 3.5 3-pointers made, taking the over on that. Another guy where if we just head over to Basketball Reference and take a look at CJ McCollum right now on the season, averaging how many threes? 9.8 3-pointers per game. That is that's just a large number. So if he's going to take 10 threes, 3.5, he'd need to shoot 40%, but he's been seeing a little bit more volume of late here too. So I think targeting for that, shooting 40% from three on the entire year. I do like being able to stack my games up in that direction. I think all of those little middle grounds. How'd you do? Did you get everything fixed you needed to?
I'm still doing it. No, you keep talking. Okay. The people love hearing you talk, I think.
Well, not only that, though that's what it is. I have such a calm, soothing voice. is what everybody keeps going after. So it's weird. Oh my God. Honestly, drop kick yourself. It's very mean that you would say that.
I played Cody Zeller too much.
So he's drop kicking you for you. It's great. Oh man, I can't wait to get a drink in LA with you when this is all over. We'll be able to make fun of me together. It's great. Looking at Kyle Kuzma, kind of in that points and rebounds number. I think with Talen Horton-Tucker now, probably not somebody that I'm going to be looking to target as much over on NHA. We saw that number for rebounds over 5.5. I still do like that number, but kind of going to like the points and rebounds or some of those other pieces, not really necessary now. But Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and then Nurkic, Norman Powell, having those four plays and running it back with a Celtic prop or two. Definitely don't want to take like some of these advantageous unders along with it if I'm going to be taking overs on like 3 or 4 of them, because you're basically asking for a very specific outcome. But this is a numbers game. And there are plenty of ways where, as I'm looking on the other side of it, Kemba Walker assists. Alex is skewing towards the under there, 5.5. 4.96 over there, 63% of the time coming in as the under. So that's a pretty advantageous number too. I wouldn't be trying to target something like that along with 3 or 4 of those Portland props. So keep that in mind too as you're building that. Don't set up your lineup to be like negatively correlated by any means.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And I just got my lineups in. So now I'm ready for the home stretch here. But we do have, it looks like the tournament currently would be overlaying. It's still got a chance here to fill in the last 4 minutes, but only $6,220 going in right now, which makes it 78% full. It's a 7K guaranteed tournament. So if you get in right now, you're increasing your chances to win some money, decrease the rake for yourself, all important things that we talk about a lot in these shows. And playing on No House Advantage every single day is going to offer you those opportunities more and more. So use that promo code today for Awesemo. It's not every day they offer new users and existing users. It's usually just new users, a $20 deposit match on there. So go to nohouseadvantage.com, use the promo code Awesemo because they will give you $20 if you deposit $20, whether you have an account already or not. And enter a lineup in the slam dunk right now because it is not full. And as I talk, it's now up to 84% full. So it's getting there, but still room for another 70 entries or so in this final 20 minutes.
Come get my dollars.
That's 20 minutes, final 3 minutes. I really, thank God, not the final 20 minutes after all this.
We have 4 more hours of coverage coming to you, Chris Spags and I, as we go bit by bit through the top 50 comedies of the last year. That would be a long hour. Oh man. Covering that.
Brad Levine saying, I got to get on the My Player grind. I just haven't had time. I know I believe Brad's a college kid. If I'm misspeaking, Brad, my apologies. But I will say as a grown man who uses money on smart things, I might have spent $200 on VC over the weekend on NBA 2K, building up guys that I then realized weren't the optimal construction I wanted to make and then deleting them and going. So I am telling you, man, I am, I know you can. I didn't, Jordan.
Call him out. Why are you the way that you are, Spags? Why are you?
Man of excess.
Honestly, though, this hour and a half absolutely flew. Thank you so much, everybody, for making fun of me and joining me. You can do that all the times that you guys want to. It's been a real one for sure.
Yeah, we got 2 minutes left here until lock a No House Advantage. And it does seem, let's see how this one's going. Not filling, still 62 entries, not filling that tournament. So a decent chance of a little bit of overlay coming on No House Advantage. So if you can scramble and put a lineup in, grab one of those optimal lineups and do it. And use the upload entry CSV file on the desktop version if you want to just throw in lines or you just have money on No House Advantage and can put some in. Always a good idea to put money into tournaments that have not filled. Let's see. Any final thoughts on this slate? We got some fun chats here, which I appreciate. This one from B saying, Spags seems to be one of the most cool, down-to-earth people at Awesemo. Hope he stays that way. First of all, not my burner. That's, I know, the thing we all think. Second of all, what the fuck is going to give me a big head? I'm doing a stream. I'm doing a sponsored stream about prop bets, and a half hour later, I don't know what's giving me a big head. Hanging out with Eric.
I love it. Here's the thing. I love money. NHA is a great spot. Their PGA product has been awesome for Thursdays. Fire that up. The first round stuff. Come check us out on Live Before Lock on Wednesdays and chat some of that. That's been really the enjoyable part of playing over on NHA for me. It's throwing a lot of those golf numbers in. That's my first love was golf betting. And obviously it's the thing that I do whenever I'm going out into the world for fun. Like I'm a golfer and that's my life. But yours is NBA 2K is what we just learned, you degenerate.
And ice cream.
Fantastic.
Those two things really. Gambling, NBA 2K, and ice cream. My 3 vices. But It's been a fun show here. We appreciate all you guys for watching. If you are on this channel for the first time, make sure you are subscribed so you can just see all the content coming through. Subscribe for a day or two. Get a read for all the content we have going on because we legitimately have content going on all day long from 6:30 in the morning on the East Coast through all hours of the night, depending on different slates and all that going on. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Follow at Eric Lindquist. Follow at Chris Spags. Follow at Awesemo_com. Eric, give the people the final plugs here, whatever you want to say, because we are very appreciative to our sponsors with No House Advantage, but now they are locked and our time has ended.
Our watch has ended. We have good old Rinpack and I every single night of the week, every single weeknight, we come out with the Slate Starter podcast. I do the Slate Starter article over at Awesemo, doing Live Before Lock on Friday for MLB. Wednesday, I do the Live Before Lock for PGA. Staying busy, hustling around as much as I can, having a blast. This is one of the best times of the year where you have MLB, gigantic contests, NBA, gigantic contests. Go Dodgers, go Angels tonight.
Yeah, make sure to check out my Four Corners videos. They are back for MLB. I think I'm still doing one tomorrow as long as the schedule permits with early MLB, but those are back. Try to be 5 days a week, so watch those if you want to just get MLB lineups in and not have to do a ton of research. Yeah, we appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us for the 90 minutes. We'll see you guys again soon. Good luck. Stupid Cody's out.